a year and a month, 1 year and a month with a situation. That affect our business over there, and nobody come and help us with a situation. Please.
Thank you. Okay, so well, the water quality, of course, is important, and I thank all the testifiers for the interesting comments here. I wanted to go real quickly to WAPA with the brine discharge, and specifically with 7Cs. So right now, WAPA has a long-term agreement with 7Cs. When you say a long-term agreement, what is the timeline?
It was a 20-year agreement established in 2011. So we have a 15-year contract with the option for a 5-year extension.
Okay, so now the brine now has some byproducts, right? You use chlorine, acids, antifluents. None of that is included in the discharge of the brine?
No, the brine material is just the pure concentrated salt water. So we only inject chlorine in the actual potable water itself when it goes out into our distribution system.
Okay, so no chlorine is going in the discharge?
No chlorine, no byproduct.
So do you reuse the salt? Do you do anything with the salt? You store it, you dispose of it separately, it just goes back into the ocean?
It just goes back into the ocean.
Okay, so St. Croix, you said, has the capacity for 3.7 million gallons, and St. Thomas is 3.3 million gallons?
That's correct.
And St. Thomas, you're discharging it down by Lindbergh Bay Beach or
That's
by the
correct.
Crown Bay facility? Which one of those two areas?
That would be Lindbergh Bay.
Lindbergh Bay Beach. So where are you discharging it? Close to the beach or out by the area where the propane tank is? The propane facility.
Closer out to the point.
Okay. Okay, good. So I wanted to go quick to Waste Management Authority. The legislature appropriated 35th legislature appropriated $340,000, and it was with the intention to buy the new pumps down at the Wayne Aspinall, at Alita Cancra, and right back of Banco Popular. And you were buying 3 pumps, and the pump was going to assist with the situation with Mr. Joselo here. What is the status of that? Because as you can see, it's still there. And also the other question is I've seen Sleepy the plumber there pumping it out, but it never ever goes away. So give us an explanation on when we're going to get that problem fixed.
I'll start and then I'll hand it over to my engineers. But this is Darrell Griffith, Waste Management Authority. The issue the first issue, we never received the funds, unfortunately, but we did purchase the pumps. So we've purchased the pumps for can crying. I think we purchased 3 pumps or 4. We purchased 3 pumps for can crying. We had to readjust funds. Unfortunately, there was a contractors we did not pay because it was an emergency. So we had to buy those pumps. And those pumps were installed at can crying. But so the issue surrounding Charlotte and Mali is not just the pumps, but underground. It's where the pipes are. Those pipes are collapsing and failing. So on each instance, it's like a roadway underground that no one can see. And in those instances where it fails, our team jump into action where you see them pumping and also replacing those pipes. And that's why when FEMA went in there and looked at our pipes underground, they wanted to give a couple of $1 million initially to just fix some that were damaged by the hurricanes. But when they looked in, they said, this whole thing has to be replaced. So that's what's currently occurring in the Virgin Islands, is that we're working on replacing the entire underground roadway of sewage in the Virgin Islands. because it is in awful bad situation.
Okay, I can understand that, right? But the business owner here gave testimony, Asilmo gave testimony that that situation has existed for 1 year and how long? 1 year and a month. So that's 14 months. So they have to be a solution to that. You cannot have that condition for 14 months.
We're going to have to go in that area again and see if we can replace those lines underneath. But what's going to happen is that when we replace one line, like we're in front of Banco Popular, if you drive past there right now, you're going to see what we call bypass lines that actually puts the sewage on top. And we had to cut a hole on the roadway that goes from the bypass to Banco Popular because that line underneath there also collapsed. And the team jumped into action where you couldn't see it in the roadway, but we actually jumped in and had to bypass that line so that it could make its way to the pumps so that it doesn't go into the ocean. So the same thing is we're going to take a look at his business area too as well, because I know we were over there a couple of months ago, and I thought that situation was looked at, and I know the team was putting together a scope of work for that too as well. So we'll take a look at that and see how we can put that to an end. But the reality is this is going to be occurring, unfortunately, for the next 3-4 years in the Virgin Islands because the entire system has to be replaced. And while we're replacing parts of it, other parts are simply just falling apart.
Okay, so Mr. Anselmo, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon.
Media, can you recognize the mic of Senator Novel Francis Des? ¿Cómo estás?
Good afternoon. My name is Anselmo Lea. Everybody know me like Joselo. Yeah, I would like to get in help with that situation we have behind Wilbur Passage Hotel because this problem is like a year and a month. That affect us and our customer. A lot of tourists come and fall. Like 50 people fall into this thing that they drinking, and when they think they're gonna walk in free, and they fall into this thing, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I was by there the other day. I go there to cut my hair, and I saw you guys look like you were cleaning it up. You guys were actually cleaning out the sewage, and so, you know, we can't have that there. So I'd like to get that done. So you mentioned that there's a 42-inch main that runs on Veteran Drive, and there's a 24-inch. So that the 42-inch main is what you have to fix, or the 24-inch, or both of them?
Both of them is what the team was working. They were working on some of that over the weekend. So you should have seen the work being done by Banco Popular over the weekend, and basically that's what they were doing. And you're going to see that all throughout the territory, is that the team is going to be responding to those breaks, and my engineering team working with the contractors and the Office of Disaster Recovery to do the planning, the design to replace all of these, because it's a very bad situation. FEMA did not want to come to the Virgin Islands and give us over $3 billion. They came here, and then when they saw the situation, they understood what the Waste Management Authority was talking about and concurred, and then obligated those funds just this year. So it's this year that we finally have access to the funds for St. Thomas to be able to address those issues. So the first thing we're doing is, like we did in St. Croix, purchase the pumps so that we can have all working pumps. Mr. Bruni fights with me on that one because he wants us to do all of the designs first and then purchase the pumps. But I said we have to take immediate action, though, because we might end up having to switch out 1 or 2 pumps because of a change in design, but it's not going to be a substantial amount of pumps changed. And then after the designs are done, then we go in at the same time that WAPA goes in, and we replace our lines, and they replace their water lines. So it's done with a 1 dig approach. And then, so you'll see that happening throughout the years coming. And in the next coming months, you're going to keep seeing work being done on these sewer lines. I wish there was a better answer that I could give that could make the public feel better, but the reality is that the sewer lines are collapsing and failing, and we're moving as quickly as possible to design them and to replace them so that we keep these waters pristine and beautiful. Thankful to the Department of Health and to the EPA. Within 24 hours when something occurs, we inform them, and everyone jumps into action so that we make sure that we keep the environment safe.
Okay, in that particular area by Anselmo's Bar, I know they have that old swale, that open swale, which was a blue bit stone design they had, and it goes over by Horace Colwood Road, and then it goes in, it drains into the ocean there underneath the highway. I took a good look at it. So, couple months ago, Public Works went, in front of the Department of Labor, they built an underground culvert, and there's never any more flooding there. I understand the difference between the drain and the sewage, but can you cooperate with Public Works? Because that's also a drainage, and apparently it's a sewage. So it seems like it's no drainage there anymore. It's just sewage, or it's drainage, sewage. What is it there in that channel that goes behind Windward Passage? It comes down Horace Colwood Drive and it goes out into the ocean. That's a swale, right? The old-time swale.
I'll ask Mr. Alex Bruni, our engineer, if he is aware of it, to speak on that, to say what the difference is, what's happening there.
Good afternoon, Alex Bruni, Engineering Manager, Waste Management Authority. I'm not too familiar with the storm drain system in that area. I do know that there's a separation between the storm drain and the wastewater system. What's occurring in that area right now, I know that because of the blockage that we had at the Cancrine pump station, it has caused a backed up throughout the system up in the downtown area. Once that system is pumped down, then we should be able to send our crews out and do an investigation in that area and try to unblock any blockage or any situation within that area. If that's not resolved immediately, then we have to do more internal investigation to figure out where the blockage is, if there's a collapse in that area, and then move forward into rectifying the problem.
And what the teams are doing now is because we fixed that one area, they're going to each and every manhole to check the level of sewage in them and see and to determine if there's still a blockage anywhere down the line.
Okay, colleagues, we're going to go to a round of 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I must recognize the presence of our Rules Committee Chair, Senator Carla Joseph. Welcome, Senator Joseph. Thank you. Yes. Senator Blyden, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to all of the testifiers, and thank you so much for your testimonies. We have challenges, and in respect to the system, over $3 billion that's going to be invested in the system. As we get there, it's like riding a bike and fixing it at the same time. So it's going to be difficult. There's going to be challenges. One thing I must say you need to do, though, is your marketing and advertising and media campaign need to be out there 24/7, because it's going to be a lot of disruptions, and we need to coordinate moving forward. But let me ask quickly in respect to the testimony, because I know you stated, Director Griffith, that is 4.5 million gallons that flows through the system daily, wastewater. But let me ask you, in terms of leaks, do we have any estimate of how much leaks do we have, or how much amount of sewage that leaks throughout the system? Have you done an analysis? Do you have any idea?
From what my team has told me,
Speaking to the mic.
I'm sorry. So what my team has told me, there are currently over 10 locations in the territory where I said in the testimony that's deemed
Correct.
Catastrophic failures. So those are the ones that I would say are the problem issues in which they're simultaneously trying to address while we're trying to fix.
Again, I understand, and I was stated in the testimony. My question: have you done an estimate of how much actually?
Oh, gallons.
Leaks, yes. throughout the territory from those areas that affected?
I don't have that information. I don't know if Mr. Bruni would be able to answer that one in terms of the estimated amount of gallons that leaks out.
Alex Bruni, no, we do not have those numbers that require us having portable meters, and we do not have any of that within the authority.
Okay, very well, because I know you guys also spoke to DPR, etc., but have any of the agencies reached out to the Marine Advisory Service at UVI that actually does research in that area on a daily basis, full time? Have anyone reached out to them to see what affects are also from their perspective? Because they're the expert, that's what they do. Have any one of the agencies reached out to them? Department of Health, Waste Management, and WAPA when it comes to water quality, etc.? Just a question, yes or no? Health?
I know the Dr. Sims, Department of Health Assistant Commissioner. The Department of Health, I don't know what the intricate relationship is, but definitely because we have such a manpower shortage, so we try our best to collaborate with areas like UVI.
We work with UVI, for example. Right now, they're working with us on the solid waste section, but on the wastewater section, our primary area of expertise that we rely on is both DPNR and the EPA.
Okay, very well. And also, I was also wondering in terms of our ecosystem, what effects, it does have on the system. But nonetheless, let me move on. You spoke to the collapse lines, right? And you attack them as soon as it happens, which is understandable because they're all over the place and you don't know because you can't see it, it's on the ground. I know that situation behind Windward Passage close to this gentleman's business and other businesses. I know since they fixed the line, since Public Works fixed the line by labor, it had a heavy rain and the whole street again was flooded behind there. So I was wondering what the issue is because it surely isn't that because it really doesn't flood in that area anymore, but that whole area was full of water again and sewage water. So there's something bigger going on there that you need to look into.
There is something, and this is was I asked my engineers a similar question to that, and it's because this is my layman's understanding of it, but the stormwater and the sewage lines are connected in some places.
There's leaks.
No, leaks and connected. So what we're doing, just like the city of New York is doing, is they're disconnecting that connection everywhere through the city of New York, because that was done throughout the United States, unfortunately. It's not just a Virgin Islands problem. So whenever you have extreme rainfall events, it overflows into those sewer lines. So we're cutting those connections so that no longer occurs, just like the city of New York and all over the United States.
Okay, let me ask you quickly before my time runs out. What's the timetable for all three islands in respect to procurement in the investment that was made? Because I know you said you ordered the equipment for St. Croix. You're about to order the equipment for St. Thomas. Have you procured one for St. Thomas?
So St. Thomas.
And what about St. John? You're too quick on the draw. And then what about St. John?
For St. Croix, like you said, we've ordered those and we've purchased those. So we're just waiting for the shipment of that to St. Croix. Okay. For St. Thomas, the procurement is going to go out this month, and the following month for St. John for the pumps.
And what's the timetable you have from your team plan and perspective in terms of getting the work done?
So for example, for installing the pumps, it takes about 3 months for the pumps just to arrive on island, unfortunately. And that's for the small pumps. The bigger pumps sometimes take 6 months for them to build and to ship on island. So then after that, it takes about a month for us to be able to install. So that's the time frame. And then the actual sewer lines, that's years.
So in closing, Mr. Chair, so let me ask, so basically you're saying within a year time for the pumps itself, and then several years down the road to build the system out?
Yes, sir. We're talking about close to a decade to build the entire system.
Wow. And while we're getting there, like Mr. Booney was telling you, in terms of doing it separately, so it's a challenge, and I guess you, like I said, have to really invest in your marketing and your outreach to people, to us, to let us know what's going on, because it's going to be a lot of growing pains, I can tell you that much. But it needs to happen.
And we need to do we are doing a decent job in communication, but we need to do a much better job and just spreading the word out and giving more informative communications too as well, so that the public knows exactly and knows what we're doing.
Look forward to seeing it happen. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the time. And thank you for your responses.
Thank you, Senator Blyden. Real quick, I want to do a mic check, video, audio. Mr. Smith, I understand you're now online. Can you acknowledge and give your name and position?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Okay, yeah, we can see you.
My name is Keith Smith. I'm the territorial manager of wastewater operations.
Okay, thank you. We got you. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of the territory, the testifiers, everybody. I watched the video. I was downstairs in my office working before I came back upstairs, and I watched the video. Well, my neighbor over here he didn't share with you, I'm actually his neighbor. Literally the property next to his. I bought that property I think I bought it in 2010, put up a building. I've been tortured ever since. And that's 2010 to, what year is this, 2025?
Yes.
It's about 14, 15 years that problem has existed. So while I'm here listening to y'all with this whole long, we're doing this, we're doing that, it's been going on for years. This is not something that has just happened. And I became a senator in 2021. And I'm not one of those people that because I have a title, I like to push it in people. I don't do that. I kept calling like a regular constituent. I kept bringing it to their attention. I kept spending my money to clean up the ditch. That's what we were doing in that neighborhood for years. So when I'm hearing coulda, woulda, shoulda, this is what we gonna do, it's like going in one ear and out the next, to be honest with you. Because in this territory, nobody can convince me that for 15 years, the same identical problem exists. It got to the point I couldn't even get to my building, how it was flooded behind there for so long. I couldn't even get to my own property. But they want me to pay property taxes. They want me to do what you want me to do as a government, but what needs to be done so I could even access my property, I couldn't even get to it. That's how high the water was. You could literally take a boat and just drive behind there, and that went on consistently. There's no reason, even if we have to make adjustments to that ditch behind by Windward, there's no reason that it should be looking like that current. It just shouldn't be looking like that. And we talk about tourism. This is right next to a hotel where you have all of these tourists looking out their balconies, and this is what represents the Virgin Islands, a nasty, dirty, sewage-ridden ditch that for some delusional reason we cannot get sorted out. And my argument is, even if you have to redo structures and pipes and all these things, why basic maintenance isn't part of your daily agenda? If you just let it back up to that level, let it sit there. So don't you guys have something where people just come and clean it up? And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that some of it is not the neighbors, because they leave trash and dump in that ditch, and that is what blocks it up. I'm not even gonna sit here and pretend that don't happen. I personally think they need to put video cameras behind there. They need to send more people out to hand out tickets, because that aids in part of the problem. I used to have the neighbor right next door to me before they ultimately moved and the fireman, Mr. Masaki, passed away. His wife, an elderly lady, because it used to get so flooded, she would go and be there trying to take the dirt from the little drainage area try to clean it up. This is a lady that was in her 70s, 80s, just trying to survive. And we sit here with all the logistics under the sun, but in 15 years since I bought that property, nothing has been fixed. So I don't really believe nothing that's happening here. I really don't. And when you talk about investments and businesses thriving, that you want to get taxes done, you damage this man's business too. This is crazy. And then we want to know why the Virgin Islands do not progress. We want to know why so many things happen, why tourism is going down, why all of these little elements are happening. Somebody isn't doing their job. And at the least, basic maintenance. If you see that ditch gets to that level, what is stopping waste management or anybody from coming in, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, and making sure that ditch is clean? Until y'all sort out the rest of it. But everybody... Time. I'm going to wrap up.
Proceed.
I'm going to wrap up. I just get to the point that I'm in a position as an elected official that I see things not only from the perspective of the consumer, from the resident, but also from a leader in this community. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if people are just lazy, people just like collecting a paycheck, people just like to go along to get along, but we as a community have to do better, and as a government, in cleaning up this territory. That's just the long and short of it. I don't like coming here and running my mouth, but you're affecting a lot of people. That whole place was stink. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was bad. It's something as simple as basic maintenance, come on. We have to do better. And I'm gonna finish listening to you guys like I was, but you can't convince me after 15 years this can't get fixed. And this was happening before I purchased my property right next to his, literally. So I can't imagine how long it's been going on. So I just wanted to put that on the record. You know, we have to do better. And that's just my thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heiliger, for those powerful words. You know, who feels it, knows it. Mr. Griffith, have you ever visited that area? Are you familiar with that area?
Numerous occasions, yeah.
So would you agree that at least the whole thing needs to at least power wash and clean up and, you know, at least look safe, sanitary, and decent? It's a real SHIT hole right now. You know?
It looks bad, and it is bad, and I wish it was the worst area in the territory, but it's unfortunately it's not. But I'm going to commit the team to go in there and take a closer look to see what we can do to address this situation and have it stop. But that's what's being done on a daily basis, and there's so many areas where the team has to jump in with the pump trucks and put it into the sewer lines, and while the other team is repairing the line, that it's a reoccurring battle that we're up against. But that area is bad, so we'll take a look at it. We'll have the engineers look at it and see what we can do to stop the debris from going in there too as well. Because what happens is that the debris comes into the sewer lines and hits the pumps, and then the pumps stop working, and then so we have to repair the pumps, we have to move the debris. For example, this week I just got off the phone with Mr. Smith and told him send a crew from St. Croix to St. Thomas to help unclog one of the lines because it has so many rocks and debris in it that we actually have to clean all of those things out. And you have to have specialized equipment and training to do it. And the team in St. Croix has all of that already. So we're going to come here and assist. So all of those things are being done on a regular basis. But I'm going to put some more attention on that situation that Senator Heiliger was talking about just behind Windward Passage, and see if there's anything we can do to address that and to stop it. So you have our commitment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Griffin, can I add some clarity too? to Windward Passage?
Yes, is
Mr.
that okay,
Smith?
Senator Fonseca?
Go ahead, Mr. Smith, yes.
Yes. Windward Passage, we have a two-pronged problem at Windward Passage. First, the storm drain itself is blocked. So that's when we have storm water and stuff like that. That's why that place always have water, whether it's sewer, whether it's storm water, it's always because it's blocked. And going to on the west side, that storm drain that empties that gut is blocked. So that needs to be repaired. And another problem we have is if you have Windward Passage, if you stand on the road and you have Windward Passage on your right, on your left side of the road, we have customers that have old cast iron pipe coming out of their residence. And a lot of the cast iron pipe that come out of the customer's residence, they're rotting. So what happened, that water from those residents, from their lateral, is running into the storm drain. So what needs to happen back there is we need to first clear that blockage for that storm, that culvert. And second thing we need to do is we need to have all those old cast iron lines from those residents that go into our system repaired.
Okay, I understand.
That's a major problem with
Yes. I understand that, but since you know what you need to do, at least go and clean it, sanitize it. Department of Health, we're going to go to Senate President Potter. Have you tested, and you test in every place, have you tested that water behind of Windward Passage in front of Joselo's business? Have you tested that water?
I don't believe that we have. I'm going to go over to AC Malloy to see if he has anything to add to that.
AC Malloy?
Good afternoon, Ruben Malloy, Assistant Commissioner, Virginia Department of Health. I don't believe that we tested that water. Our testing primarily is done at the pump stations.
Okay, test that water, because people live there, people work there, people walk the street. And like we received testimony, it's been going on for a very, very long time. Senator Milton Potter, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. A special good afternoon to the testifiers who are before us today. Director Griffith, I don't envy you. I think clearly the territory's wastewater system is in a state of crisis. That's just, can't even argue that point. I think FEMA, you didn't have to persuade FEMA a whole lot. They came in, they did their assessment, and they awarded us $3.2 billion. So futuristically, we see some help on the horizon, futuristically. I wanted to get a sense from you as to how much of what we're experiencing with our deteriorating wastewater system, how much of that is deferred maintenance versus just the realities of an aging system?
I think it's a combination of both. I said at this hearing I'm not going to come and beg for money, but I'm always gonna bring it up too as well. And I'll explain why. The legislature gives us about a little bit over $1 million from the sewer tax funds that's generated. I had a part in the testimony that I took out that I asked, because we've added more people to the sewer lines, the amount collected should be closer to $4 million. So I'm going to ask the Senate to take a look at that to see if they can increase us to the full amount that's brought in, so that we can address the maintenance issues. So part of the problem we have is maintenance issues. That's about maybe 40% of the problem. The other 60% of the problem is just the lines are just simply deteriorating because they're past their useful life. One issue that we're fighting with FEMA about is the laterals that Mr. Bruni spoke about. What those laterals mean, it's that connection from your house to the sewer line. So that connection is deteriorating tremendously in the downtown Charlotte and Marley area. But for all of the entire sewer system, the $3 billion that they've given us is just to do the public roadway of the underground sewage. The private laterals where it connects from your house to that line, they don't give money to do that. So we're not arguing, but we're trying to convince FEMA that they have to give us the money to do that, because all 100-something thousand citizens of the Virgin Islands, or 40,000 homes, can't afford to connect. So we're asking them, while we build these lines, you have to give us the money to connect from the house to the individual, because when they get that new line and the new pressures coming, it's gonna just fall apart.
So the 3.2 billion really isn't sufficient to solve the problem. The residents will have to connect from their residence to the public sewer.
Yeah, and if the old sewer, when the old laterals are connected, some of them are simply gonna fail because they're not accustomed.
Okay. With the 10 plus catastrophic failures that you mentioned in your testimony, how many residents are currently without wastewater service because of those 10 plus catastrophic failures that you mentioned? Is there a number you can put?
I don't think any, but I'm going to ask Mr. Smith, who's over wastewater, to answer that question, just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Mr. Smith?
Well, I don't know exactly how many residents, because what happened is they're not experiencing issues in terms of backups, because a lot of it is on mains, and a lot of those mains are either concrete, clay, or cast iron. So it's leaving the house, yes, but it's affecting sometimes the roadway, it's affecting sometimes the neighbors. We have certain situations where because of the hillside, because of the terrain, it leaves the homes fine, but it comes to the cast iron pipe that's deteriorated and go over into the neighbor's yard and stuff like that. So we have, like, for instance, on St. Thomas, we have about 8 locations on St. Thomas that I can see with the issues with either concrete pipe that's collapsed, and most of them is cast iron pipe. And one of the things that we experience too with the cast iron pipe is we will dig out 10 feet to repair that what we call a point repair, and do a point repair. And when we try to connect to the piece of pipe that we cut, it's so brittle, it break off in our hands.
Time.
And then we have to expand 5 more feet, 10 more feet, just to find a good piece of the pipe that we could connect to. So a 10-foot excavation turned into 30-foot excavation just to repair one pipe.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Chair, if I may just wrap up.
Yes.
I definitely want you to continue, because I think the information that you're really talking about is very important for the general public to be aware of. I wanted to just pivot a little bit to Dr. Sims to ask if you're aware of any documented cases of illnesses due to sewage exposure.
Well,
I know people.
So that's going to be a little difficult to really say, because it's not a one-to-one system, if you understand. So someone smells something, it's not directly reported that this is what made me ill. We would say that, of course, as epi tests and as EH tests, certain things matriculate and develop that lead to sickness, so yes. But to say that there's a one-to-one testing system, we won't really be able to confirm that.
Okay. So maybe it's affecting folks, maybe not, but we don't have any system in place to specifically link the illness to the sewage exposure.
Correct. But what we do is, once there are reports of illnesses, especially in a concentrated area, we do begin testing, we begin, doing all of the research, so we ensure that we can trace back and figure out what's happening. That is absolutely part of our system.
Okay. Final question, so I don't totally abuse my time. I want to ask Director Griffith to sort of understand who will have oversight. Is it VI Waste Management Authority that has oversight over this whole rebuilding process? Or what role does ODR play? Or is this you? Do you have the subject matter capacity, the subject matter experts to oversee this $3.2 billion initiative?
It's a combination approach. So what's happening for all of the underground work, it's the Office of Disaster Recovery that leads that charge for anything that's the underground. So where it's connected with us, WAPA, all of that's being done with the Office of Disaster Recovery, where our engineers put together the scope of work and give that scope of work to them for the RFP. And then we'll have engineers there too as well as the construction is being done and also as the plans are being developed. So our team will be intricately involved. For everything above ground, we're doing that ourselves. So all of the pump stations, the treatment plants, those things are being done by waste management staff.
Thank you for your response. Thank you for your flexibility, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Griffith, Senator Alma Francis had asked you that question. Well, she mentioned it. How much is it going to cost? You got the 3-point-something billion. That's the main. Then you're saying the lateral connections need to be done. If you can't get the whole thing connected, then it's still not fixed. So, do you have any idea what that would cost?
If my memory serves me right, and Mr. Brunio or Mr. Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the last estimates we got were close to $600 to $800 million for those.
Wow. So that's about $4.1 billion to replace that whole structure. Well, let me get to some small numbers. Last year we paid your WAPA bill. That was a few million, and just recently the 36th legislature appropriated $5 million to the waste management. Did you receive that money?
We received that and received it thankfully. Those funds were immediately transferred to contractors that we owed funds for. And I remember how happy my finance team was to be able to actually pay these contractors. They were in the halls talking, it was a great day for us to be able to pay those contractors who do work for us. And that's why on the solid waste side, I'm asking for fees too as well, but I'll not dive into that on the wastewater side of discussions today.
Okay, thank you. Senator Vice Chair Hubert Fredericks, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Pleasant good afternoon, everyone, testifiers, colleagues, listening and viewing audience. Mr. Griffith, Director Griffith, if you would, this is a series of questions, so if you could as quickly and as succinctly answer them, I'd appreciate it. I know time is of the essence. First question, are all of your pump station online?
Are all the pump stations online? I think the answer to that is no, and if you'd like, Mr. Smith can tell you which ones are not online.
Mr. Smith?
We have 31 pump stations.
31.
Right now we have an in-house capacity. We have three pump stations on St. Croix with issues that's offline, and we have 2 pump stations on St. Thomas that is offline. We are basically using bypass pumps right now for them to operate. But the in-house pumps, the electrical pumps that's in-house, they're not online. We're currently using what you call bypass diesel pumps just to keep those going.
Thank you very much. I assume these bypass pumps are the ones that the vendor was owed some money to the other day. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I think so.
Okay, good. I'm glad that's straight now. We were getting some ugly calls about that. What is the issue with the Sugar Estate area? Real quick.
We have the same issue in terms of collapse lines. We have cast iron lines, old lines in the ground that's giving us issues in those areas. We have one location that we have to go every single day and pump because 200 feet of cast iron pipe is collapsed. So that's the situation. Age.
Okay. What's the status of the LBJ Garden sewer situation?
LBJ right now, the pump we're using, that's another one that we're using in St. Croix, that's bypass. We're using a diesel bypass pump, a new pump that we purchased, and it's a diesel pump that we have to man and manage, and that's the situation with LBJ. We ordered a house pump for that facility, but that pump is a 250 horsepower pump, and that pump takes like 6 months. Right now, I think we have about 2.5 months left before that pump is here.
Okay, so we're renting the pump that we're using right now.
That's our pump. That's the pump that we're using right now belongs to us.
Okay, awesome. All right. Does anyone know how many releases of untreated sewage we've had in the past year?
What I could say is in the past year so far, I don't know the quantity, but I know how much what we call sanitary sewer overflows. We have 153 territory-wide sanitary sewer overflows that we had to address so far to this date.
153. How many on St. Croix? How many on St. Thomas?
I'll have to get up for you, but we tracking this, so I'll have to get into look into the system.
Please. Do we have any of this problem in St. John, by the way?
Yes, we do have some in St. John. Yes, we do.
Okay. Please forward St. John's number as well.
Yes, we will do.
What's the average time it takes to resolve a pump failure? Not replace the pump, but to get something in there before this issue doesn't exacerbate like my colleague's property?
And it takes based on we have three types of stations. We have a small pump station, medium pump station, and large pump stations. The small pump station will take a couple of hours to do that, to address it. The larger pump stations are a little more difficult. Usually take pretty much, say, 8 hours to get that resolved.
Okay, so before we got all this beautiful money from FEMA, we've had these issues with failing sewer lines over the years. What was the approach that Waste Management had in trying to resolve these issues? Because my colleague just mentioned 15 years owning a property and it wasn't fixed. We were appropriating money to Waste Management throughout that period of time, and we still have the same issue today.
Well, Mr. Smith has only been with the authority for a little bit over 2 years. I've been there for
30
3 years.
seconds.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Alex Bruni, who's been there for the life of Waste Management, to just address some of the ways that we address those situations in the past. And one of the things that the territory has to understand is that with the new hurricanes and the number of storms that we've been getting, that's made the situation even worse for the underground. So, Mr. Bruni, if you could just explain to them how we go about addressing those situations in the past.
Good afternoon again.
Time.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah, usually in the past, when we have a blockage or a bypass in the system, engineer will be notified about it, and we would immediately do an assessment and do what we have to do to make sure that we rectify that particular issue, whether it be call out the contractor and repair it or do it ourselves. It all depends on the severity of the situation. But usually I would say within less than 24 hours, we get on it, and just a matter of a couple hours or a couple of days, we'll be able to alleviate that problem. Depends again on the severity of the problem. There are several issues that we've had in the past, from blockages right out here to the legislature to issues where we had collapsed line leading to the treatment plant by the airport here in St. Thomas or in St. Croix, where we have collapsed lines near the LBJ pump station and other places. Some of those issues was rectified in less than 24 hours. It depends on severity, it depends on what we have in stock, and it depends on how fast engineering can get out there to resolve the problem.
Okay, thank you very much. This is my final question in this round. As it relates to the laterals that we talked about, these are the adjacent private property line feeding into the main sewage line. Are we gonna bill these property owners separately for access to the main line like we currently do? Because we're getting pushback on people not wanting to pay because they don't currently use the line. But truth be told, they might have a sewage line that's failing that is impacting the neighborhood. So what are we gonna do to resolve this issue?
That we're actually putting an appeal into FEMA right now. We submitted it last week to ask FEMA to reconsider and to pay for the laterals. for individuals.
No, I'm not talking about FEMA. I'm saying about waste management charging the private property owners an access fee to the sewer line.
Yeah, we charge that access fee of $110 for everyone who is within how many? 60. Within 60 feet of the sewer lines. And
Right.
the reason it's done is because, of course, there's the maintenance issue of being able to maintain the system. And as soon as someone connects, we have to be able to maintain that system so that it can keep flowing. Could you repeat the question again? Because I don't think I'm truly answering it.
Okay, so we have those laterals in place right now that are failing. And some private property owners are being charged this access fee that they feel it's unfair because they have not connected to it. They're right adjacent to the sewer line, but they don't use it. But we know some of the older properties have laterals going to the line. How do we address that issue?
Rudy, help me out here because...
So
the lateral is connected to the lines?
Yeah, the lateral is connected to the line. So if the laterals fail, what FEMA is telling us is that, well, you said don't address FEMA, but it's the private person's responsibility for that lateral line, that connection to the sewage line. So they actually pay to connect to that line, to the boundary. And then anything after that, we take care of. But I feel like I'm not understanding your question because I don't.
The lateral line is actually the responsibility of the homeowner. When we maintain the mains, but the laterals is the homeowner responsibility, right? And that's one of the problems we have behind Windward Passage as well, because most of the laterals coming back there is it's owned by the individual owners, and most of it is gone. So we have to figure out how we address that, because if we put in some burden on the homeowners.
Yeah, some of those property owners had some alternative sewage system put in. That's why they're like, yeah, I'm not paying for this lateral because we don't use it now. So I'm just wondering how we're going to deal with that, because it's going to be a problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the time. You could answer in the chair's time if you'd like.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that, Mr. Smith, the laterals is primarily the responsibility of the homeowner, or is it the government? It's my understanding is the homeowner is responsible for installing a lateral to connect to the main, but you go ahead, explain it.
And
yes, sir, you're right.
Okay.
So
all right.
similar to WAPA.
Right, with the water line.
It's a homeowner's responsibility from the home to the boundary line. From the boundary line to the main is our responsibility.
Right.
So with the issue with FEMA, they don't have a problem paying for it from the boundary line to the main. The issue is you can't utilize federal money to install the lateral on private property. And that's what they have an issue with.
Okay. Point of information, Senator Alma Francis Heiligen.
Thank you. I heard earlier you gave an overall synopsis of $600 to $800 million. How did you come up with that number? And could you give me a specific number breakdown as it relates to each household? Because I'm trying to get an idea how you came up with this number versus what it would cost each individual if they have to come up with the funding to attach from the line to their home.
So that cost differs from property to property. For example, there are some homes that have retaining wall, fence line, structures that was built over the lateral. And the distance between the lateral and the sewer line differs again. So you have to make an assessment on a house by house basis to accommodate that number.
Is it every single household that uses the system? For example, every single household uses this sewer system?
No, 60%, about 60% of the houses use it.
Oh, because I've been at my property since I was 2 years old, and we have our own septic tank. I have a septic tank too. So So you're saying that this 600 to 800 million is only going to be for those roughly 60% of the people that actually utilize the system. It's not even all the homes.
Correct.
Oh, you didn't explain that too well, because I was under the assumption with that number was everybody, but it's only 60%. Well, calculate and give me a number individually, potentially. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Francis Helge. I want to follow up on the question with Sugar Estate, specifically First Avenue. Public Works have a contract there. I noticed they put a new box culvert under the road down by First Street area where the head start is. The constituent called me and said she can't even eat breakfasts. What happened there? Because everything there is brand new. What happened there?
Mr. Smith?
Everything is brand new except for the sewage system. We wish that we were able to coordinate with Public Works when they did that work with WAPA.
So hold on, let me just, sorry for interrupting you. Sorry
at the same time.
Smith. So you're saying that Public Works did that work there and they didn't cooperate with waste management?
I think that was, I'm new, but I think that was in the making long before before me. That was in the making before. But what would have been ideal is that when the contractor opened up the road, we had the opportunity to change the sewer line at the same time. Because that sewer line, some of that sewer line in Sugar Estate is concrete pipe and some of it is cast iron pipe. And all of those pipes, long overdue is life expectancy. So we have to eventually go back in there and change out all that line on the putting replacement.
Wow.
So what's happening is certain parts of we have partial collapse, especially on the cast iron line in there. We have partial collapse, and that's why if the sewage is stagnant for under 24 hours in Sugar Estate for any reason at all, it get blocked. So we have to go in there and unblock it. So we have to keep it flowing all the time in Sugar Estate. That's a problem that we have right now.
Well, Sapopa, that's incredible and amazing. Public Works replace all of those there, and I'm assuming the waste management line is below the Public Works line, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is like.
So they're gonna have to dig that up again.
We'll have to go back in there again on a put replacement and replace those lines.
Okay, Senator Carla Joseph, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good afternoon to you, our colleagues, as well as the viewing and listening audience, and all of our testifiers who are here and present with us today. I want to take this moment, really, to recognize that Mr. Darrell Griffith, who is an accountant, I keep saying it, by trade, that's your profession, yes, is in an acting capacity of a very technical position as the executive director of the Waste Management Authority. Typically, you have persons who are engineers and the like who would stand in that position. I must say you and your team are carrying this very heavy burden. This is a major issue that we're experiencing. This authority, not as much as WAPA, I'm going to tell you, is really in a crisis mode. You don't bring in sufficient monies, generate sufficient monies to be self-sustaining, and this government has to continuously provide funding from the general fund to support the operation. And not only that, we had the Public Services Commission, which I am an ex officio member here, who indicated that you owe them millions of dollars. Okay, so we have your authority in itself is in a crisis mode. Mr. Griffith, tell me how long you've been in this acting position?
I've been, surprisingly, because my assistant told me just this morning, next month will make a year. So it's been 11 months in this acting position. So I've definitely learned a lot from the CFO desk. I was only looking at the money. Now looking at it from the broader perspective, I've definitely learned a lot and appreciate the work that our team is doing.
And your team is trying, really, you are there swimming against a riptide, which is both sewer and wastewater. So we have to see how we could send you some help. Have you, has the board started to make any overtures to get a permanent replacement? Have they interviewed any candidates?
They have this. They've interviewed 6 candidates so far, and 2 came to the Virgin Islands. Well, I won't get into the long story.
Okay, just make it succinct because I have some questions.
So they have interviewed, and they're looking at another candidate now too as well. So we're staying up to date with them on finding out.
Okay, I hope you'll be able to go back into your position, which is your primary profession. But I'm glad that you are learning. So that's a good thing, and that we have you here. Now, I wanted to ask you a question, and it's on page 3 of your testimony, Mr. Griffith. You stated, and I'm going to just summarize, that the 42-inch gravity main and the 24-inch force main on Veterans Drive are failing, which result in restricting flows east of the Cancrine pump. So all that we are discussing here, including the property that one of my colleagues owned and Mr. Anselmo, they are being affected by this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now you went on to say that you have looked at resolving it by hiring a contract, right? Now, you didn't go into details, so I'm going to ask you, who is the contractor that you have signed a contract with to address this issue?
This issue that we addressed, and Mr. Smith, jump in if I say anything incorrectly. It was SDNC that we hired to do the bypass, and that was completed already.
Okay, that was completed. But we're still seeing that these areas, including PMP, as well Harris Court, is still being affected.
So what Mr. Smith told me today is that the team is going to every single manhole, opening it up, and looking to see where the sewer levels are, and then addressing the situation from there. So we're going through every single manhole on that line right now.
How long do you think that project is going to take, Mr. Smith, for you to complete?
So what happened is we have 2 collapses on that line, and the last collapse happened Sunday.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Sunday last week.
Yes, you may.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
And we just was repaired with the bypass on Sunday. This Sunday gone, and we started up. So right now we have the pump started. We're running the pump, and we're trying to get the levels down because we were back up for so long. It take at least 36 to 48 hours before we could actually see all the levels down in the east part of Shatamani. So the guys right now currently going from manhole to manhole, starting from Cancrine all the way to Haven Site, checking all the manholes and us checking the levels and updating me on what's going on there right now. Okay. The permanent fix, though, however, will be 800 feet of line from the bridge close to Cancrine next to Banca Papala all the way to the pump station. And that line is 42-inch line, and it's 20 to 25 feet down in the ground. So you're talking about we have to engage a contractor to do that work. It's going to be a lot of dewatering and stuff because that's filling land and stuff like that. So we don't have the capacity in-house to do that work, so we have to get a contractor to do it. But that's the situation right now. Right now, it's just a temporary fix. It's a pump bypass that we did.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I know my time was called, but I have 2 questions I would like to wrap up on. Now, and it's based on what Mr. Smith indicated. Mr. Smith, relative to this 800 feet of line that you mentioned, is that covered in the costs for FEMA with a prudent replacement? Because then, we might be putting in something and then we have to take it out again.
Yes. That's unfortunate. The thing about the FEMA stuff is that you want to design it first. You want to, especially when it comes to gravity systems, you need to have a full design before you start work, because they might say the design might show that pipe doesn't even have to be there. I might say that the pipe needs to be a smaller size or a bigger size or stuff like that. So that's a risk. But right now, because of the urgency of the situation, we have to use some type of funding mechanism to do that work. Okay. And that work is going to be expensive work.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask Assistant Commissioner Craigwell Sims, and I want to thank you, Assistant Commissioner, for your providing a very detailed and comprehensive testimony relative to the critical public health and environmental health hazards associated with the discharge of raw sewage onto our streets and roadways. But my question would be, have you or do you have any data of any businesses that have closed because of wastewater that is running by their establishment, and that you have had to come in, environmental health, have had to come in and close that establishment due to wastewater issues?
No, we haven't had any that's closed. Our primary goal is really to provide education and support, because as mentioned in the testimony, it's not always a result of the business itself. So we try to support by presenting high risk and how to mitigate.
Okay, so no businesses you have had to force to close because of wastewater.
No.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Carla Joseph. Okay, so I wanted to ask, right? This been burning me, because I went to Eudora Ken High School, right? And I don't recall the odor then as it is now. So they said it's the sargassum and the lagoon and stuff. So I want you to answer my question. The Nazareth sewage empties where?
That empties in the Nazareth treatment plant, the vessel-based treatment plant, right at the corner of, right across from the Derrican School, across from the food stand.
So the sewage is going down there, and they also has the lagoon and the sargassum. So that scent that you smell when you over in Nazareth, that's sargassum and sewage, or just sargassum?
That's just sargassum. Matter of fact, when you look at the effluent coming out of that plant, it's very, very clean water coming out of that plant.
I understand, Senator, because in St. Croix, I was driving in Princess and I was smelling this scent. And I was like, what in the world is going on? Is our pump station down? So I drove to LBJ. Everything was working perfectly. And then it occurred to me, I saw all the sargassum there, and I was like, it's the sargassum. That scent is horrific. It smells like sewage, but it's not. And it's not just on St. Thomas, it's on St. Croix too as well.
Okay, I'm going to take your word for it. So let me ask you now, when was the last time you upgraded the capacity of that plant over there? Because there's a lot more homes over there that's going into that sewage than it was a few years ago. Has that plant been upgraded, or you have the same capacity you had 20 years ago?
That plant is slated to be replaced. We're having some issues with the plant.
No, that's not my question. I'm sorry.
It hasn't been upgraded.
It hasn't been upgraded in how long? You can't remember.
I've been with Authority for the past 20-something years, and it has never been upgraded during that time frame.
Okay, but you're saying it's sargassum. I'm going to take your word for it.
Size.
So the reason why you're going to upgrade the plant, you're going to increase the capacity as well, because there's more sewage. The school is built up. There's a lot planned in that area.
So part of our procedure is to do a hydraulic analysis of the area to determine flow and capacity, and then the plan will be designed based upon the capacity and usage within that area.
Okay, and talking about flow, that was my next question. Look like you read my mind. So the sewage in St. Thomas, Charlotte, Amali, it flows from the east to the west or the west to the east? How does the sewage flow?
Combination of both.
Okay, if you're in Estate Thomas area, it flows from the hospital, from the hill, goes down. So it's going from east to west?
That's correct. So it flows from Havenside, hospital ground area, a portion of Pattyburg to the Long Bay pump station. The Long Bay pump station pumps the sewage over Belgium Road Hill onto a gravity system near the district court, and from there it flows down to the Cancrain pump station. However, there is flow collected in the sub-base area that is directed through the sub-base pump station, and that pump station now pumps eastward towards the Cancrain pump station.
Okay, so the Long Bay pump station, right in front of Lucinda Millen home we're talking about, right?
Correct.
That pumps the sewage up Belgian Hill?
Correct.
And then it goes where? It comes on the highway here, or it goes Main Street area? Where does that flow? It goes on Veterans Drive?
Right by the Boy Scout building, there's a transitional manhole on Belgium Road, and there's a manhole down in the district court yard. And then from there, it goes gravity fed down to the Cancrain pump station.
Okay, so that means when we upgraded the new highway, the Pomerod, etc., we replaced that?
There was never a line on the old road. It always went up Belgium Road.
Okay, so it goes from Belgian Road, goes down by Moravian Church. I'm trying to see how the sewage flow. It's up on Belgian Road. Where does it go from Belgian Road?
There's a transitional manhole by the Boy Scout building. The transitional manhole is where you go from force main to a gravity line. From that transitional manhole, there's a manhole in the district court parking lot and Veterans Drive side, and that line goes from on Veterans Drive straight down in between the fort and the legislature, down on the right-hand side in the parking area by the Rolex area, straight down to Windward Passage, where it comes back onto the main road, and down to the Cancrain pump station.
Okay, so that's the reason why you need that big 42-inch main on Veterans going down, because everything is now carrying there.
Hospital ground, Contant, Altona, Savan, everything goes down to that line.
And you just have that's one main line.
One main line.
Wow.
So now, prior to this morning when we did that bypass, there was no flow in the system because the line was collapsed right by the bridge.
Mm-hmm. And I understand long time ago in 1953 or whatever, when they were doing that, maybe it was a reason for one line. But since you have, the $3-point-something billion, you're going to still continue with just one main line going down? Because I assume everything goes out at the airport, right?
That's correct. So $3 billion seems like a lot of money, but it is not when it comes to redoing the whole entire sewer system territory-wide. So I still believe once we do our designs and our analysis, we may be a little short, but we have to do our designs first. We have to do an engineering estimate and then make the determination as far as what portions of the system we can and cannot do.
Okay, well, you're the engineer. I just wanted to understand how the sewage flows. So then finally now, when it gets down to Contant area, you got to go up the hill again because Airport Road is another hill. So you got to pump the sewage up that hill there again, right?
Correct. So that's where the Cancrain pump station comes in. That's the pump station pumps it over the Chinaman Hill or by Tima onto the Red Point treatment plant located behind the airport.
Wow, we have a real complex sewer system. A lot of pump lift stations, et cetera, et cetera. It's a real complex system. Maybe in the new design, you can, I know there's no gravity feed now in the line because the lines have been there for so many years. I imagine they collapse. So everything is a pressure feed now, right? More or less.
It's a combination of both force main and gravity.
Okay, colleagues, we're going to allow a burning question. If there's anyone with a burning question, we'll allow a burning question. Okay, yes, Senator Carla Joseph, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a member of this committee, but I definitely found it necessary to come up here. I wanted to ask, the rebuilding of the wastewater treatment line, 2 questions. Are you part of the Super PMO?
Part of the super PMO for those lines, yes. So,
Okay,
yes.
for 4 of those lines.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and where are you right now with the design aspect, just for the St. Thomas and St. John, those 2 islands?
For St. Thomas, the next week, the first RFP is going to go out July 15th. Huh? It's coming in, I'm sorry. It's coming in. July 15th, it's coming in.
The RFP is coming in. You're going to get in bids
The
now?
responses, yes.
The responses.
Yeah.
Okay, next week. Okay, for St. Thomas. What about St. John?
And St. Thomas, and that's just the eastern portion of St. Thomas. So the other one is being developed, and then for St. John, that hasn't been put together yet.
Okay. Okay. I do want to ask Mr. Chairman if you would
Yes,
allow.
go ahead.
Why are you focusing only on the eastern side? I mean, I love it because I live in the east, but we're having some major issues in the Midtown area. Why are you focusing on the east first?
We had to break it down into sections. For example, St. Croix was broken down into 2 sections. So we put the St. Croix one out first, and then St. Thomas second. And then right now, we kind of have a fight with, not a fight, we're asking the Office of Disaster Recovery to actually move that section that we've been talking about today out of the bundle so that we already have the RFP specs for that. So we're asking them to allow us to just put that ourselves so we can start the design immediately.
And you're saying that's for the Midtown area, which is being affected. You want
Yes.
to take that out of the bundle with the Super PMO. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Joseph. So at this time, I'd allow a closing. We're going to start with Mr. Anselmo. You can give your closing remarks.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate all the senators and all the Germans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Next, we'll go to Mr. Darrell Griffith, Interim Executive Director.
Thank you, Senator Fonseca. Mr. Selmo and all of the residents of the Virgin Islands, we're going to work to address those issues because wastewater is not something that we want to see on the streets or in our oceans. And so our team immediately jumps on those things to take action. And we'll continue doing that as we partner with the Office of Disaster Recovery to rebuild the entire underground system and to also do with our pump stations. So we'll make sure that we communicate to the public all that we're doing and to keep you informed. And please do not hesitate to contact us when something occurs so that we can immediately jump on it, because we know that situations are going to happen, but we want to be able to immediately address it. Thank you so much for the time to come here, and thank you for the Senate's support. Your support has been fantastic to Waste Management, and we ask just for your continued presence and your continued support to us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Interim Director Griffith. Mr. Gregory from WAPA will entertain your closing remarks.
Yes, good afternoon again, and just thank you for having us today. And you know, WAPA's goal obviously is to keep our environment as pristine as possible. We're going to continue to work with EPA and DPNR to make sure that when it comes to whatever we discharge into the Bay Areas, both St. Croix and St. Thomas, that we do so in accordance of the law and we follow whatever guidelines, and we'll just continue to operate as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Quagrell Sims, AC.
Thank you, Senator. On behalf of Commissioner Encarnacion and the entire Virgin Islands Department of Health, we thank you for allowing us to testify today. We do remain steadfast in protecting public health, as well as continued collaborations to ensure that not only the public is safe, but everything that is requested today goes all the way to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, you release from your testimony. The Committee on Health, Hospital, Human Services stands in recess for 5 minutes. Good afternoon. The Committee on Health, Hospitals, and Human Services is back on the record, and we're now going to ask Mr. Clerk, can you read Block 3 into the record?
Block 3. The committee will receive testimony from Roy Lester Snyder Hospital CEO Ms. Tina Commission regarding the current status of kidney dialysis services on St. Thomas in light of the temporary closure of the Caribbean Kidney Center. The committee will also hear updates concerning the Virgin Islands Health Care Foundation based on St. Croix and the renal center's capacity to accommodate additional dialysis patients during this period. Invited testifiers, Ms. Tina M. Commission Esquire, MPA, Chief Executive Officer, Snyder Regional Medical Center. Dr. Tassim Khan, MD, nephrologist, the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation. Mrs. Amina Salim, patient advocate, community awareness, the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the reading of Block 3.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We wanted to do a mic check. We're going to go to St. Croix first. Testifier. It looks like Dr. Gardner. Can you put your name and position on the record?
Walter Gardner, Medical Director, Caribbean Center.
Okay, and on St. Thomas, we have Tina Commission. Okay, and Dr. Olowachi. Can you just say hello so we can get your name and address?
Yes, good afternoon. Dr. Delphine Olavachi, Chief Nursing Officer, Schneider Regional Medical Center.
Okay, and Tina?
Good day, Senator Fonseca. Tina Commission, Chief Executive Officer, Schneider Regional Medical Center.
Okay, great. So, Ms. Director, Commission, you can proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Fonseca. Good afternoon, Honorable Senator Ray Fonseca, Chairman of the Committee on Health, Hospitals, and Human Services, other senators present, and good afternoon to the listening and viewing audience. My name is Tina Commission. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Schneider Regional Medical Center, and with me today is Dr. Delphine Olavachi, the Chief Nursing Officer of Schneider Regional Medical Center, who has helped us with hands-on leadership through this hemodialysis crisis. First, I would like to thank this committee for the opportunity to provide testimony on the current status of dialysis services on St. Thomas, especially in light of the abrupt closure of the Caribbean Kidney Center, otherwise known as CKC. Your attention to this critical issue is deeply appreciated. I want to start my testimony today by extending my heartfelt gratitude to the incredible team of nephrologists, hemodialysis nurses and technicians, and our emergency room team, our inpatient caregivers, and all of the support staff at Schneider Regional Medical Center for the amazing job they do every day in caring for members of our community who have end-stage renal disease, and for always rising to the occasion when required to do so to ensure that every person in our district gets the healthcare services they need, even when we have an emergency, a natural disaster, or crisis. Recently, our team was forced to step in to avert crisis and patient harm when 32 hemodialysis patients were left without any access to the life-sustaining treatments they need. These 32 hemodialysis patients were being cared for at the Caribbean Kidney Center, or CKC. On July 1st, 2025, at 3:47 p.m., SRMC received an email from Dr. Gardner indicating that CKC would cease operations effective 5 p.m. that same day, providing less than 2 hours notice and offering no plan for patient transition. On the morning of July 2nd, dialysis patients began arriving at SRMC's emergency department as early as 4:30 a.m., reporting that they had been turned away from CKC and instructed to seek care at our facility. Many of these patients were unannounced, and the paper medical records they carried with them were incomplete, many of them lacking critical information, such as their current history and physicals. Critically, no communication or clinical handoff was made to SRMC's interim chief medical officer, director of hemodialysis services, any of the attending nephrologists, the ESRD program administrator, or to our case management team. This failure in coordination placed patients at risk and threatened to create operational instability at our facility. These actions constitute violations of the CMS conditions for coverage for end-stage renal disease facilities, which mandates the safe and orderly transition of care, the sharing of complete medical records, and appropriate communication between outgoing and receiving providers. Additionally, CKC's conduct appears to violate key provisions in the Virgin Islands rules and regulations, as well as the local Certificate of Need program rules. Yet CKC, a private entity, has repeatedly received several government bailouts and has been allowed to continue to operate. Despite receiving significant government funding, CKC still completely abandoned those patients at the end. CKC's actions constitute patient abandonment, which is a serious ethical, clinical, and regulatory offense. The failure to ensure a safe and orderly transfer of care for vulnerable dialysis patients violates the standard of care and places lives at risk. Early that morning of July 2nd, SRMC originally received a total of 15 dialysis patients who had previously received care at CKC. Then later, that day, we received another 5, and in the following day, we continued to treat those patients. In all, we treated all 32 patients. Our team mobilized very quickly early that morning to receive and care for those dialysis patients who had been turned away from CKC with little or no notice. Many of these patients arrived at our emergency department in varying states of medical need. Some were lacking basic critical information about their care, which is essential for us to have to allow for them to have safe and continuous dialysis. So our physicians assessed them or reassessed them, wrote their orders, and oversaw their treatments. The professionalism, compassion, and dedication of the SRMC team ensured that patient care was delivered timely to those patients and that everyone got the care they needed without significant interruption. SRMC was able to absorb this huge surge in patients because we had proactively expanded our hemodialysis unit last year. In October 2024, we opened our expanded unit with 12 additional treatment stations to be in a better position to care for all of the patients in the St. Thomas St. John district who would need dialysis. SRMC was also able to absorb this huge surge because we had enough supplies on hand because we had our hurricane stock in. On site, every year we prepare for the annual hurricane season and we ramp up our ordering of supplies in case we're not able to get fluids and dialyzers and medications and other things. So because we had that in-house and because we had built out the space, we had the capacity to take care of the patients. What we didn't have, and the most challenging part of this surge, is needing additional staff members, specifically dialysis nurses and dialysis technicians, to care for the additional patients. At SRMC, we manage productivity closely, and we cannot afford to just keep extra nurses and techs on hand for just in case surges. That's why we really have to commend our team who worked long hours and who put in overtime and extra shifts to make sure the patients all got their treatments. We need to supplement with additional staffing as quickly as possible to avoid burnout of our current staff, and we need to replenish our supplies. We need to make sure that we have sufficient hurricane stock on site now that it's hurricane season. So we need an immediate release of funding to secure the necessary staffing and supplies. We want to thank the legislature for passing Act 8876 in the past, which specifically appropriated $1 million to Schneider Regional Medical Center for the support and expansion of hemodialysis services. But despite that legislative commitment, SRMC did not receive the release of any of those funds. So we have redirected from other projects and made it work with our limited funds to have accomplished the build out, but we really do need the funding now so that we can get the staffing that we need and we can restock our supplies. Future budget allocations should also include additional funding, considering these are additional patients that SRMC is caring for, so that we can ensure that this care continues uninterrupted in the future. And this is a permanent solution, a permanent fix with having dialysis being provided by the government hospital. We are always going to be there. We are the people's hospital, and we will take care of the patients. The abrupt influx of patients did place significant and unanticipated strain on our personnel and our resources, but our commitment to patient safety and our continuity of care never wavered. And SRMC now has 28 CMS certified dialysis stations that are available for use. We're fully committed to meeting the needs of our end-stage renal disease population. SRMC provides the highest standard of dialysis care available in our territory. We deliver comprehensive, patient-centered, and clinically excellent treatments in a fully accredited state-of-the-art facility. In closing, I again thank this legislative body, the governor and the central government agencies that work closely with the hospitals, especially the Virgin Islands Commissioner of Health, Ms. Justa Encarnacion, as well as the territorial board and all of the federal partners who are involved for any assistance that they have provided or that they will provide through this critical period. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Tina Comisión. Next, we'll receive testimony from Dr. Walter H. Gardner of Caribbean Kidney Center. You may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, CEO Comisión, Nurse Makach, I'm sorry. I want to again express my personal and CKC's gratitude for your tireless efforts and commitment to dialysis patients and our community. I applaud your efforts and those of the U.S. Virgin Islands Legislature to always find ways to ensure the lives of our most vulnerable critical priority. On July 1st, 2025, CKC, in communication with all relevant governmental and non-governmental agencies, announced a temporary cessation of services at its St. Thomas facility for one reason only. CKC's policy requires that it hires competent, licensed, registered dialysis nurses and dialysis patient care technicians to provide direct care, patient care for its dialysis patients. Unexpected family health emergencies for 3 of its critical staff members placed immense stress and pressure on the remaining clinical team, potentially exposing patients to unnecessary risk and contributing to stress and burnout of the remaining care team members. As a result, CKC no longer meets the patient ratio and staff mix necessary to deliver safe treatment. As the medical director, it is my responsibility to ensure that patients and staff are not exposed to unnecessary risk. CKC has been making its best efforts to recruit and retain qualified staff to continue providing quality care. However, circumstances have conspired to make effective staffing options untenable. CKC is aware of that this decision to temporarily suspend services will have a significant impact on the overall healthcare system in the territory, but believes this action was the most prudent under the circumstances. CKC plans to resume services as soon as it recruits adequate staff to provide safe and effective care for its patients, and is working diligently to have this happen very quickly. That is my testimony.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Mr. Clerk, can you read the testimony from Tasim Khan, Medical Director, Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation Renal Center, into the record?
36 Legislature of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Committee on Health, Hospital, and Human Services, Wednesday, July 7, 2025. Testimony, Tashim Khan, MD, Medical Director, Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation, Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation Renal Center. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Senator Fonseca, honorable members of the 36th Legislature, and all present here and viewing public. Thank you for inviting me to testify. Thank you for inviting me to give testimony on behalf of the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation, VIHCF, regarding the availability and continuity of dialysis services on St. Croix. The Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring uninterrupted access to life-sustaining dialysis care for our community. We have the capacity to accommodate 78 dialysis patients and currently serve 31 patients 6 days a week with 2 shifts a day. We do not take our service to this community lightly. We understand that we serve our most vulnerable patients who depend on us to be there for them at all times. We have been gradually bringing on patients, but we are prepared and fully capable of assuming the care of up to 47 additional dialysis patients should the need arise. In the event that we are called upon to observe 39 patients, we must emphasize that doing so under current staffing conditions would necessitate that we transition into our emergency plan, which is 1, we require full cooperation in obtaining patients' record immediately. 2, add an additional shift for each day. 3, assign our personnel to work 10 to 14-hour shifts to uphold the required standard of care. 4, while we are prepared to act in the interest of patient safety and continuity of care, we would have to immediately reach out to hire displaced dialysis staff from closed or damaged dialysis units and hire additional trained dialysis staff if needed to prevent exhaustion, reduce risk, and preserve high-quality treatment. Importantly, the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation is not requesting financial assistance. We have structured our operation to sustain this expansion through revenue derived from patients' insurance reimbursements, and we are prepared to compensate any additional staff accordingly. However, should the foundation observe patients previously served by the Caribbean Kidney Center, we respectfully request that we also be reimbursed by the Medical Assistance Program, MAP, in a manner consistent with the reimbursement arrangements provided to the Caribbean Kidney Center. This parity is essential to ensuring continuity of care for vulnerable patients and sustaining the long-term viability of dialysis services on St. Croix. Our foundation started operation in January 2025 following a successful completion of comprehensive survey conducted on behalf of Medicare. In our short time serving the public, we have already shown our commitment to excel, as noted by many Virgin Islands government and federal government officials who have visited our advanced dialysis unit, a testament to the strength of our team and the integrity of our care model. Our sincere hope is that we can put aside our differences, judgments, and agendas and truly come together as a Virgin Islands community to address this ongoing issue. Let us not be disconnected from our fellow human beings because we may feel that it is not our suffering. Unless someone lives with dialysis, either personally, as a family member, or as a friend, there is no understanding of the full extent of what is being endured. The VIHCF have worked diligently to establish a permanent dialysis unit at St. Croix, and we remain committed to serving as we have always stated. We understand that it's essential for patients to have a choice. However, they need options that are reliable and permanent. We are only part of the solutions. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully submitted, Amina Salim, Board Secretary, on behalf of the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation. That concludes the reading of the testimony from the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation Renal Center. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So, okay, so there you have it. CKC, we received testimony. They closed with improper notice. It should have been a longer period of notice. But the good news is that Roy Lester Snyder Hospital, through its executive director, Ms. Tina Commission, they've stepped up and they are serving all of the patients. So I want to get to that now. Are any patients on St. Thomas unserved? Are you able to treat all of the patients?
Tina Commission, CEO, Schneider Regional. All of the patients in the St. Thomas, St. John district are being served.
Okay, good. And we've received testimony that the St. Croix, the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation, is also able to treat all of the patients on St. Croix. However, CKC still is open on St. Croix. So I want to ask Dr. Gardner, at this time, is there any possibility that the St. Croix operation is about to close?
I'm glad you used that word, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, close. You know, it's a word that's been used to inappropriately as it concerns CKC. I want to remind everybody, CKC has been providing services, dialysis services, in the Virgin Islands for 22 years as of last March. We have been the supplemental service available when other agencies and other providers fell short for any reason at all, or when there were emergencies like hurricanes. I want to also remind everybody that CKC continued to operate fully immediately after the hurricanes of 2017.
Yeah, Dr.
We did
Gardner,
not operate in
excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Our president has an important meeting, and so Senate President Potter, you're recognized for your 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Special good afternoon to the testifiers who are here before us today. I want to really just right out the gate commend and congratulate and say thank you to you, CEO Commission and your team, for really stepping up to the plate and averting what could have been a real serious crisis, and a crisis involving life and death. So I want to really thank you for stepping up. I was very surprised when you mentioned in your testimony that you were provided with less than 2 hours notice via email at 3:47 p.m. for a 5 o'clock p.m. shutdown. That concerns me. I wanted to ask you whether or not you're aware of what was the medical condition of the 32 patients when they arrived at SRMC, and were any of them in any immediate danger?
Yes, Senator Potter, thank you for the question, and thank you for the compliments. I'm blessed to work with a great team of professionals. The patients were in varying stages and varying conditions when they arrived. Most of them had received their treatments recently, so this was their next due treatment. So I don't think anybody really missed any treatments yet, but they had to be assessed and reassessed. And some orders were changed, but then all the patients were started timely. So they've all now received treatment. We're up to treating 106 patients now.
Now, how does that impact you now that you're accommodating patients really now from 2 facilities, consolidating them into your facility? What's the long-term sustainability of that? What are you going to require in order to provide consistent long-term services to these patients?
Sure, thanks, Senator Potter. We will need some ongoing support. Hemodialysis it's a very critical service. It's not one that we make money on typically. We can get closer to breaking even, especially with having additional volume. Then you can do a little better with the bottom line. But this is a sustainable service for us. We've built out the unit. We got the 12 additional stations now. So we have the capacity. We have a great water treatment center. Water quality is very, very important for dialysis. And so we can continue to take care of these patients moving forward now that we have incorporated them into our census. We're just going to need to add the staffing support.
Understood. Why hasn't the $1 million from Act 8876 been released? And what bureaucratic barriers, if you're aware of, exist?
I think there's probably, my guess is that it's probably due to cash limitation, cash flow challenges, but I'm hopeful that it can still be released because it would be extremely timely to receive that right now.
Okay. I mean, you're talking about life and death, literally.
Literally.
So as far as priority in, accessing available cash, I would think that would be number one, because this is life and death. What regulatory oversight changes are needed to prevent similar healthcare facility closures, in your view?
Yeah, it's a great question, Senator Potter. I think we have to really look at the laws that currently exist on the books and do a little bit more on the regulatory arm, probably through Department of Health as the entity that regulates healthcare facilities in the territory. Also the Virgilons, the licensing, the medical licensing board. I know they regularly review providers, but I think we have to look at the CON process and do a little bit more in terms of visiting those facilities and ensuring that the care is stable and up to par, that the community gets the care they deserve.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I think that's all the questions that I have for now. I have to rush to this appointment that was at 5 o'clock. But I want to thank you again, Madam CEO, for stepping up to the plate and ensuring that this outcome was a lot more positive than it could have been. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your generosity and flexibility, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I hope we didn't make you late for your appointment. So there you have it. Thanks again, because, we in this community, if we remembered after Hurricane Irma and Maria, the mess, the MESS, I can say that one, Senator Alma Francis Highland, the mess this government was involved with when we had to transport kidney dialysis patients off island to the tune of millions of dollars. And I'm hearing today now the 35th legislature approved $1 million for Roy Lester Snyder. The governor signed it into Act 8876 on August 20th, 2024. And today's July 7th. 11 months later, and Roy Lester Snyder has not gotten a dime of that $1 million. And here it is now. They went out and used their own resources to equip this new hemodialysis wing. I think it's on the second floor.
Yes, Senator.
On the second floor. So we want to let everyone in St. Thomas know. We're going to get to St. Croix. Everyone in St. Thomas know, if you had been a patient of the Caribbean Kidney Center, you can report to the Roy Lester Snyder Hospital on the second floor, the kidney dialysis unit. they can treat you and provide quality care. They've added 12 chairs, 12 dialysis chairs, so that we can be treated. So that's awesome. And, you know, we ought to take congratulations, the whole legislature, because we acted on this, and all senators voted for it. Senator Marvin Blyden, you're recognized for your 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon again to my colleagues, and good afternoon, CEO, Commission, and thank you so much for your testimony. Man, I first want to say thank you to you and your staff for stepping in and stepping up and do what needed to be done. And as I stated earlier in this hearing for DJ and who we are, the people, especially in time of crisis.
Yeah.
And we honestly care about each other and look out for each other. So I want to thank you and your staff for stepping up to the plate and doing what's necessary. Now let me go to the testimonies. I want to start with Dr. Gardner's testimony first. This 2-page testimony that was just read, that he went into the record. And I must say, honestly, I am truly disappointed. I know that I appreciate what he did after the hurricane, after the storms, in respect to many of our patients, dialysis patients. He did what needed to be done as a Virgin Islander and doing his specialty in terms of caring for those individuals. But I must say, Dr. Gardner's letter to Chairman Fonseca, request for information, is a study in how not to provide details. There were no details in there. And my first question is, what are these circumstances that conspire to make all staffing options untenable for the Caribbean Kidney Center? And does this mark a permanent closure of the facility? And how much money has been provided to CKC over the last few years to ensure that it would remain open, as a matter of fact? Act number 8130, $75,000. Act number 8729, $700,000, and Act number 8875, $2.1 million. I am very, very, very concerned for our patients in respect to service being abruptly dismissed an hour 30 minutes before 5 o'clock. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. And I think, I'm not going to say what I think, but that's not who we are, and it's not right, basically. But nonetheless, let me ask Dr. Gardner. I'm going to give you a chance to respond. Dr. Gardner, in respect to the Kidney Center, with the challenges you're facing, and you say you're glad Senator Fonseca spoke to not mentioning closure, and I also spoke to what will ensure that it would remain open. What is necessary in terms of the Caribbean's Kidney Center? What the issue? And be succinct. I'm going to give you a minute to respond, if you would like to.
Thank you, Senator. First of all, we found ourselves in a situation, staffing-wise, that was not safe. When I realized that, I spoke to my staff. I realized that they put in long hours, and I decided that in the interest, that because we were unable to provide the level of care that we expect, that our policies demand, and that you and the people of the Virgin Islands deserve, we decided that we had to cease operation temporarily. Again, I want to emphasize, this was not a decision taken lightly. If anything had gone wrong with any of our patients, we'd have been crucified. If CMS came in and certified and surveyed us and found that there were things that were not adequate, for example, staffing ratios, et cetera, we were going to be criticized. It was therefore my decision, and my decision alone, to temporarily cease operation until we can provide the kind of care that we've been providing for the last 22 years to the citizens of the territory. The urgency demanded that we act that way. We notified all the governmental, non-governmental agencies by email, which was the fastest way we could have done it, explaining fully what the reasons were. We also provided our patients with adequate medical records and information in a letter form as well as verbally, suggesting that we would referring them to the hospital in St. Thomas for care.
Dr. Gardner.
Yes, the timing.
I'm sorry. I have 2 minutes left, and I need to ask the next question of Royal Lester Snyder. I don't know if we have a next round, but if possible, I'll continue in the next round. Okay? I appreciate your explanation thus far. CEO, CEO, let me ask you in my short time that's remaining. I have 2 quick questions for you. Number one, in terms of staffing, when you were not prepared for what hit you with this situation, right? How much staff do you have, number one? And number two, in terms of ratio, how long will you be able to keep going to include overtime, etc.? And what is the funding necessary for you to continue? Because I know you said you did not receive the $1 million, but what do we need to give you immediately or initially in order for you to continue on the path you're on right now as we go forth with our people here in the territory who goes to the hospital for dialysis?
Thank you for the question, Senator Blyden. We have a team of about 22 people that work with us in our hemodialysis unit. We would need to add about 3 RNs, hemodialysis trained RNs. It's a specialty area. And we'll need to add at least 5 to 6 hemodialysis techs. We have good relationships with temporary staffing agencies, and so we can work with them to get the contract labor from them, but they will require upfront payment for that labor. I think, if we got $500,000 or $300,000 at least initially released to us, that would certainly get the ball rolling on being able to put in some supply orders and to make the first couple of payments for the staff.
And in respect to supplies, what about the emergency supply that you use? How much will it cost to replenish those supplies, because they're going to need it to be put back? How much would it cost for those also?
Time.
I need a total overall number so we can know what to focus on.
Certainly, Senator Blyden, and I will send you back through the chair that detailed breakdown. But I think at least the initial orders, that $300,000 would get us in order of supplies, some meds, some medications, and a couple of weeks of paying for the staff.
Well, I'm sure my colleagues and I will find a way to make it happen, because we're talking about lives here in the territory, and we always do what's necessary on behalf of our people. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the time, and thank you for your responses, testifiers.
Thank you, Senator Blyden. Real good, pointed questions, because lives are very important. We cannot have, under any circumstances, where any clinic gives less than 3 hours notice, and now you're presented with an additional 20-something patients that you had no idea was going to come. It's so good that you were able to treat them, by adding those additional chairs. So now I want to go to St. Croix, Dr. Garner, because, okay, I'm not going to use the word closure. Say temporary suspension, because we've gotten testimony from the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation that there's about 39 patients that you treat now on St. Croix. More or less, how many patients do you have on St. Croix?
That number is about correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Senator, Mr. Chairman, however, could I add the following?
Yes, go ahead.
Several years ago, the facility at Crown Bay closed and notified us. I'm not saying this to make an excuse. I'm just saying that this is the way things happen and can happen in emergencies. They notified us at 5 o'clock in the evening on Sunday about their closure. We accepted all the patients at that time at CKC. Snyder Regional accepted none. Now, I say that not to criticize Snyder. In fact, I add to the compliment and the congratulations that they received for the services that they provided and their ability to respond to this emergency. We are deeply grateful on behalf of ourselves and the patients. However, emergencies happen in dialysis, and when they do, this is the kind of thing that could happen. Now, are there better ways that it could have been done? Sure. If this was a situation where I thought we could function for additional days or weeks before having to do this, we would have done so. This, as you all have pointed out correctly, this is an emergency, patients' lives are at stake, and I was not willing to accept those risks. So I provided the patient's records to be taken to the hospital. I notified the hospital of what happened, yes, on short notice, but I did. And we proceeded to be as supportive as we could. If necessary, information was provided. If there were additional information, what number to call and how to get additional information required on the patients. Mm-hmm. So I am not proud of the way things have happened. However, I did them because I thought it was the correct way to do it, given what was at stake, patients' lives. I started earlier to say that we've been providing dialysis services in the territory for 22 years. We would not have survived if we were reckless, if we were not providing quality service, and if we were not caring about our patients. The patient would not have stuck with us this long if that were the case as well. So I make no apologies for what has happened. I wish and I regret we had more time to give the appropriate notices, which I think was reasonable. But this was an emergency situation, and we did what we thought was right for the patient.
Before I go to the next senator, Dr. Gardner, that pissed me off. You here saying that you give no apologies for what happened. You gave us 2 hours notice that you're closing this center on St. Thomas, where patients, many lives could be in jeopardy here, and you're here giving testimony to the committee that you give no apology. That's not acceptable. You should be here telling this committee that it was unfortunate, et cetera, and you apologize for the late notice. You can't come here telling us you give no apology. That is not acceptable. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized.
Mr. President,
yes, you may respond.
I don't apologize for the decision I made. I thought it was the right decision to make under the circumstances. Yes, I apologize for the inconvenience, and I want to make that publicly clear. But the decision that I made, I believe, was the correct one, and that's why I made it.
Okay, that was a poor choice of word. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 6 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of the territory and staff. Dr. Gardner, I need a little bit of clarity because I still have no clue why you closed. All of your responsives have been going around and jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to fully understand what happened. Now, in your testimony, I heard something about conspiracy I don't understand. Did you have an issue with the nurses? Did they walk out? Was it an issue with funding? Do you feel they were getting recruited? What exactly happened? Because you're going all around it, and I have no idea what I'm dealing with.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. It's very simple. We require certain patient ratios, certain patient-staff ratios, and we required certain classification of people to care properly for dialysis patients. 3 of our critical people had family emergencies, health emergencies. One employee, mother was in the ICU on life support, and in fact has since died. 2 employees are receiving chemotherapy and radiation therapy for cancer. The employees related to those 2 people felt that they had to be there for the treatment with their family member, and they therefore gave us very little notice and left.
So based on the ratio, you made a decision to shut the center down because you felt you could not give adequate service. That's basically what you're saying.
That's basically what I'm saying, yes.
Okay, I better understand what's happening now. Thank you. You know, I applaud you for serving the community for 22 years, but I hope you understand the sentiments of what me and my colleagues are feeling today, because it just seems so abrupt. And as representatives of the people, we're very concerned about the very people we do represent. And when several of them are calling us and they're panicking and they're scared, and we understand that you said earlier that you gave them their records to go and you referred them to the Roy Snyder Hospital, but the CEO in her testimony said that they didn't have adequate records and they had to go and reassess all these individuals again. So I am sitting here hearing 2 conflicting sets of information. So could you please tell me exactly how you feel that you provided them with accurate records to take to the Roy Lester Snyder Hospital? And then I would like to hear from the CEO maybe a response to that, because I am literally hearing 2 completely opposite answers.
Senator, we treat patients who are visitors to the territory all the time. CMS has a prescribed set of data that must accompany each patient. We complied with those requirements in terms of the data that we provided the patients with. Assessment of the patient when he or she presents to the facility is mandatory. It has to be done. We do it all the time. Sending medical records by themselves does not necessarily communicate all the facts that may be applicable. You heard the CEO says that none of the patients were in any extreme medical circumstance, none. Okay, they had all been treated up to the day that they were discharged, and the treatment schedule was continued by Schneider from her testimony. So it is important to make those points.
Okay.
The patients were not in any acute critical condition.
I heard you. Thank you so much. CEO, Commission, could you share your thoughts?
Yes, Senator Francis Heiliger, thank you for the question. There should be, and it's prescribed by CMS, how facilities should discharge patients and hand off patients. Even in a temporary closure, you have to make sure that the receiving facility gets the medical records. Sometimes doc-to-doc communication is warranted and is appropriate. A lot of times we have our case management team or our social worker involved in transitioning the patient. So there really is an orderly way to do it, and that's not what was done here. Handing the patients a part of their records or even handing the patients their records is not the prescribed way to transfer records, but I can also have Dr. Delfino Lavaci, who's an expert in quality assurance and quality management, speak to that because she understands and can speak to the CMS regulations around it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Delphine Olavaci, the Chief Nursing Officer, Schneider Regional Medical Center. I would like to say, in addition to being the Chief Nursing Officer, I was the Vice President of Quality and Performance Improvement at Schneider for 10 years. And I am fully aware of the ESRD conditions for coverage. And in the case of closure, or if you have to cease services, there is a requirement that there is an organized handoff to the facility that you are transferring the patients to. Their medical records should have been sent by CKCI to our facility with all of their current dialysis prescriptions, their labs, their H&Ps, and so forth. We did not get the H&P, which indicates to us what other comorbidities that a patient may have, what some of their other physical challenges that they may have. So we did not have that information. So our nephrologist interviewed each and every patient that came, that started coming in at 4:30 in the morning. There was no communication verbally, no contact with any of our medical providers, which should have been done. Dr. Gardner is correct that we do receive transient patients from other facilities if they're coming here and they may need temporary dialysis, but that is also done in an organized way, where those patients' medical records are sent to the facility. There is discussion with the facility staff. I've never known of an instance where a facility could send an email 1 hour before they are closing the business and then send the patients with their own medical records, some of them who may not be knowledgeable, and some of them were stressed, and we had to help them through that process so they would be able to communicate with us themselves. I will say we didn't even know how many patients were coming. It didn't say anything about, those are things that need to be communicated by a CKC. I personally received a phone call at 4:58 in the morning that the patients had presented. Because we didn't know anything about these patients, I personally went to CKC myself to try to find out how many patients we would be receiving. And while I was there, a patient came for their dialysis treatment and was told that the center was closed and that he was given his medical records with the person who brought him for his treatment and told that he had to go to the hospital. The patient and the family member was so upset that they were like, can this actually happen? I personally escorted them. I had them follow me to the hospital. I took them to the area where they could be received by our staff. That patient had no idea that the center had been closed or that the services were suspended temporarily.
Oh my.
And so the patients, they have to be notified that they will not be receiving treatment.
Exactly.
So, you know, while I understand there's a difference between a temporary suspension and a closure, but there's still a process. If the center was closing, and I would like to say we professionally, my professional opinion, we're using semantics. If we're closing, there must be a 30-day written notification and an orderly transfer.
Okay.
I asked how long is the facility going to be closed, and I was told the staff didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, that's not an orderly transfer of services.
Well, you shed some light from a different perspective. I just want to ask one more question, and I'll be finished.
Yes.
Dr. Gardner, I know as we've been discussing here the difference between a temporary suspension versus a closure. And some of what you shared earlier was, I know one of the staff members, you said their family member have passed on. Have you had any meetings with them since to verify if you're going to be able to continue and potentially give some type of date as to the potential reopening? Or is it strictly staff issues versus other issues that could have compounded along with dealing with the staff issues?
Running a facility is a very complex process. there are several factors that impinge on this decision making, but the main one was the staffing issue. Let me say that, you know, it's
Time.
It's difficult. I'm sorry. It's
ahead.
difficult to be in a position where you have full responsibility for almost 40 patients. You do everything you can for them every day. You make a judgment. It's a pure judgment call that you were falling short in a specific area for reasons that were totally beyond our control. People do get sick. People's relatives do get sick, and people do have to go. People's relatives do get into the ICU, and they have to go home. So, for circumstances totally beyond our control, I made the call
Sir,
to suspend services.
Dr. Gardner, what you're saying, you've told us about 2 or 3 times already. I asked a specific question. Have you been in contact with the staff to discuss with them a potential reopening, or is this a situation that is also not only compounded with staff, or are there additional issues that might play a role into this temporary, we're not going to use close, temporary suspension?
I am in contact with the staff almost daily. We have staff come into the facility on a daily basis because we still have to manage other issues. There are no other factors directly led to my decision. It was solely a staff patient safety issue.
Okay.
And did I answer the question?
Yes, the only part was a potential reopening. Have you guys discussed that?
I'm sorry, I omitted that part. We are actively recruiting people, personnel to replace these people in the event that they don't come back quickly. As you may know, recruiting clinical staff is very difficult. We have several people who have agreed to come. We are negotiating the terms of of them coming. We expect to have some definite word within the next day or two on most, if not all, the people we need to reestablish services. The other factors that you alluded to that may impact the reopening of the facility, is resumption of services, is these people are all, for the most part, currently employed. And they have to move to the Virgin Islands. They have to complete contracts that they may be on currently, et cetera, et cetera. So giving you a firm date today I'm afraid I can't do that. However, we're doing everything we can for obvious reasons to reopen and reestablish services as soon as possible.
Okay,
it is possible that this could be within the next couple of weeks.
Thanks.
But I do not want to suggest a specific date until I know for sure. And at this point in time, I do not.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the additional time, and thank you for your response, Dr. Gardner.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heiliger. Point of information, Senator Marverbrine. Okay. Okay, so that's good news to hear that you're actively recruiting staff, Dr. Gardner. That makes me feel a whole lot better. Okay, so Senator Herbert Frederick, Vice Chairman, you're recognized for your 6 minutes. Hubert, H-U-B-E-R-T.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Colleagues, listening and viewing audience, central staff, and my awesome staff. Let me start off by saying I was a little surprised. Thursday, I was heading over to Celebration to have a good time on St. John. And then I got a call, and I said, uh-oh, this sounds serious. And then I diverted, and I headed to Caribbean Kidney Center. And thereafter, I went to Roy Lester Snyder Hospital. And I got such a pleasant education from such a very difficult situation, something that could have turned out horrible. But thank God, everything turned out wonderful for the patients. And I must say, I called Dr. Gardner, and he was quite supportive in the questions I had, because I was confused as to, what was going on. And he told me go and visit his center, and I went there, and his staff was very cooperative and assisted me and explained and showed me things. And I said, okay, he has a staffing issue. And then I went to the hospital, and I have to thank you, Ms. Commission, CEO Commission, for allowing me the opportunity to visit, and Dr. Delphine, that's what I call her, but Olavisi was awesome. She showed me the dialysis unit, the old and the new, and I met the staff, and they were awesome people. They were working hard, and I immediately told my colleagues, I said, guys, we're going to have a staffing issue if we don't find a way to assist the hospital quickly, because they've been inundated with a whole bunch of new dialysis patients. And if you know people on dialysis, every couple of days they need to go and get dialyzed. So these wonderful employees at Roy Lester Hospital, they're working around the clock to make sure they could take care of these patients with their unique needs. And I am not really happy with the way it was done in terms of the transfer of information. That would have got me really stressed out too if I was in their situation. But given the fact that it seems like Dr. Gardner is saying he was given this information rather abruptly, it was pretty catastrophic to his business. So we have to now figure out what we need to do to get him back up, because the bottom line is the patients. They're the ones that really need this service. They need options. Right now we have the capacity to take care of them, but at this level, it's going to be hard on the staff. So at some point, if we have another option on St. Thomas, because on St. Croix, we're okay, but on St. Thomas, we need to make sure we exercise this option to get another place for these patients, just in case something catastrophic happens at the hospital, which is always a possibility. No matter how new and wonderful the staff is, stuff happens. And I don't like to be, especially being a vulnerable patient with that kind of illness, you want to be sure that you have options in case something happens to you. So if we could find a way to get the Caribbean Kidney Center open again in some way, form, that would take a lot of the stress off the hospital and the staff. That's what I see here. This is an opportunity for us to come together. Just like when the storm hit us, we came together. We need to come together right now and figure this out so we could make sure the patients don't end up being in a very tough situation. This is not sustainable to just take on 32 new patients like that. I mean, they don't have the staffing.
We can.
Ms. Commission, CEO Commission.
Yes, Senator Frederick. Good afternoon.
What is the current hours your staff is typically working right now?
Our staff typically work 80 hours over 2 weeks. Most of them work 12-hour shifts, but they are putting in some overtime and some extra shifts right now to get us through this period until we can get some additional contract nurses and contract techs on site.
And is this sustainable, in your opinion?
I think it's, yes, Senator Frederick, I think it's fully sustainable for us to continue to care for these 32 patients into the future, well into the future. It'll be a sustainable, permanent service. We would have to add staff, and we're going to try to add permanent staff. We may have to add a little contract labor to get us there, but then we will try to add permanent staff and fully expand the census moving forward.
And do you know what the financial impact of this will be on your hospital?
We think it will have a bit of a financial impact. I don't think it's going to be huge. We do provide the service and we bill and collect. Now we have to provide services to everyone who would need it, and so we have a payer mix that includes folks without the ability to pay. So we do lose a little bit on the service line, but with the volume, we should actually be able to do a little better on the bottom line for that service. And so we will need some support, somewhere probably in the range of $1 million a year, $500,000 to $1 million a year. But then you have a very secure, stable service for patients who really need that.
Time.
Mr. Chair, if I may finish up.
Yes. Yes, go
SRM
ahead.
now has to use its emergency, according to your testimony, its emergency hurricane supplies to deal with these new patients. What position are you in to replace that supply right now?
Yes, Senator Frederick, we would need some funding to become available rather quickly so that we could put in order through our main suppliers. We have 3 maybe main suppliers that we will pay, as well as ordering some pharmaceutical products.
And is this supplier the one that we just heard in the news from Puerto Rico?
They do provide some supplies that are used in that unit, but there's another main supplier that we use as well.
Okay, just a follow-up. Were they one of the vendors that we paid recently, we gave the money for?
We have allocated money for that vendor in the list of vendors that were sent down to the legislature and to Government House. We are processing those payments of the $6.5 million that we've received so far. Of the $10 million that was passed, we've only gotten 6.5. Of the 6.5, we've already dispersed close to 5 million. And there were a number of vendors that have been paid, so we are processing through that list. And we expect that within 30 days of having received the funds, it will be fully expended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the additional time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Hubert Frederick. Senator Marvin Blyden, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. As a member of this committee, and as for this senator, I do not believe in giving another penny to a private entity in terms of funding. We already donated $2.9 million, and we have yet to see a comprehensive report of how that money was spent in respect to the patients of this territory. So far for me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, I'm not giving another dime to any private entity, and we have our hospital we can invest in to get a return on investment and assure that they stay open no matter what, because it's a government entity and it's our hospital, which is our only hospital in this district, and I'm sure that we're going to do what we have to do to assure that the state remains open in terms of staffing, funding, and everything that's included in running that hospital. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Yes, thank you, Senator Blyden. And I'd like to say a little bit on that too, because our hospitals, right, need to be able to receive and treat certain patients that are being taken up by the private providers. Normally, and I'm not saying that this is the case with CKC, I'm just speaking in general, there are ambulatory surgical centers that take the best paying patients that should be going to the hospital because that's the payer mix. So we need to do what we can to help our hospital first, because our hospital can never close the door and can never refuse to treat any patient under any kind of circumstances. If any patient presents to the hospital must treat them, because the hospital is truly not for profit. So I want to make that point real clear. Senator Carla Joseph, you're recognized for your 6 minutes.
And thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good afternoon to you, my colleagues, as well as the viewing and listening audience and the testifiers before us. Mr. Gardner, let me start first with you. In August of last year, this body passed $2.1 million in Act number 8875. Have you received all of this money?
I have not received a penny, Your Honor. So let me tell you.
I'm just
sorry,
asking.
I'm sorry.
It said it was 2.1 million for the fiscal year ending 2024. Yeah, September 30th, 2024. Hold one moment for me. From the general fund to the Department of Health for arrearage owed and projected costs to proffered services for services rendered to your private Caribbean Kidney Center. Did they or did they not get paid? Those nurses and technicians from Pafford Medical Services, did they get that money, to your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Senator.
Okay, and in that same legislative session, we appropriated $1 million to CSRMC. And it is your representation today, Ms. Commission, that you have not received any of that money.
Yes, Senator Joseph. Tina Commission for SRMC. Those funds have not been dispersed to SRMC as of yet.
Thank you. We need to understand how is it that, before I go on, because my mom, God rest her soul in peace, was a dialysis patient for 15 years. I know Dr. Olavachi, before she even became Dr. Olavachi, for many years advocating for my mother's care. So, Dr. Gardner, is your facilities CMS certified?
Yes, Senator. They've been certified, CMS certified from the inception, continuously so to the day.
Thank you. So were you not getting money from CMS and billing Medicare or even Medicaid for the services rendered? Why would you have all of these costs that is running up? Because I know when I'm taking my mother off island to any facility throughout the United States, I never used to have to worry about paying her. No government agency, to my knowledge, was paying local government. All of the money came from CMS for payment. Did you receive money from CMS to pay for this cost that we paid for Crawford too?
Senator, it's a little more complicated.
Well, I'm just asking you a direct question. It's either yes, please. We have a stenographer here. Please just answer the question. Did you or did you not receive payment for Medicare or Medicaid for costs incurred for this period of time that Pafford was providing medical services to your facility?
Yes, Senator.
You received payment. And what in the amount did you receive?
I could not answer that, Senator.
Okay.
We received the usual payment that Medicare pays or the insurance company pays for services. However, you recall this was in the middle of the COVID situation. The federal government found it necessary to have a COVID emergency fund, which is what was used by the local government, I'm told, to supplement our cost. Because at that time, and still today, recruiting and finding staff was extremely difficult and extremely expensive. We bring most of the people we have to hire come from North Island.
Okay, please stop. This $2.1 million was not COVID money. Okay, this was coming out of the taxpayers, of the Virgin Islands money. That's taxpayers. That was not COVID money. That was money from the general fund that we gave Pafford to cover costs that you had owed them. So I'm really thinking that we need to have an inspector general come and audit you. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you why I'm saying it. We give you $700,000. We have the ability to do that and the right at this moment because there's something with your operation that is not. There's curious things. There's just things that are alarming and how you conduct. Dr. Delphine Olivaci is correct. When I am transferring my mother to any other place to receive treatment, we're going on vacation, I had to, Mr. Chairman, I had to provide, they would have a coordination. But I understand that this was emergency. So there is something with billing and paying that is happening here at CKC. And I definitely would be writing a letter to the Inspector General to conduct an audit because we need to understand especially how this $700,000 that was appropriated to you in June of 2027, June 27, 2023 was spent. We don't know. We haven't received any report. Have you reported to the legislature on how that money was spent or to the Department of Health? Dr. Gardner?
Permit me to explain, Senator. First of all, we came to the city legislature because we were having difficulty. We could not continue operation after the COVID funds were ended. The COVID funding started for us because of staffing issues that we presented to this legislature, which in its wisdom agreed to give us some money to go forward. Subsequent to that, an injunction was obtained by the government of the Virgin Islands, forcing us to continue whether we were able to afford it or not. A condition of that was that the government would continue through PAFFD to provide staffing for us, because the PAFFD contract, the contract amount that were being paid to these people was such that we could not afford to continue that service. In fact, let me give an example. For 2 week services, PAFFD billed $75,000 for 2 week services. That was not sustainable. We requested assistance, and was given assistance by this legislature, and continue. And when the government, the VI government, got an injunction forcing us to continue, they agreed to continue the PAFFD subsidization. That's what was situation. That's what the situation was. That explained the situation.
Okay,
now, the $2 million that you said funds in arrears. Those arrears arose from the fact that PAFFD was not paid on a timely basis, and they threatened to pull their employees, which would have caused a situation not dissimilar from where we are right now, and that was the basis on which the legislature approved those second funds.
Okay, and I understand that, but something is happening there with your operation because you can't. You're having challenges staffing up. And when you're having challenges staffing up, that something is happening there operationally. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to ask, I understand that you don't like that word closed, but to me you're closed because you ain't serving nobody, at least in the St. Thomas, St. John district, you're closed. When do you anticipate open up? Do you have a plan or a set date to open or reopen and resume operation?
But I do. I'm sorry. We have a plan, Senator, that's in full force right now. I unfortunately cannot, because of what I explained earlier, cannot give you a firm date yet, but it is going to be very soon.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your leniency and allowing me to ask these questions, but I still have some more questions, and I hope we're going to do just a quick lightning round for the second time. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, and those were some very good questions. And, they got some other parts, too. You know, the government of the Virgin Islands at one time was looking into acquiring your CKC. You know, the Commissioner of Health, you know, a lot of government officials, appropriate government officials was trying to negotiate a purchase. Somehow you guys could not come to an agreement. But even so, right, we've bent over, you know, to help. You know, in my first term in the legislature, the amount of time I spent with trying to get funding to your clinic, Dr. Gardner, I think I spent more time on that than anything else. And, you know, I'm going to be honest, right? That's the reason why the 35th legislature came up with the plan to let's give this to the hospitals rather than a private clinic, because Roy Lester Snyder Hospital is not going to close. On St. Croix, of course, is different because Wang Louis just don't have the space. But Wang Louis is also leasing out. As a matter of fact, Darryl Smalls is doing the design for that. So Wang Louis is also going to be expanding chairs on St. Croix. So on St. Croix, we have both the Kidney Foundation Renal Center, and Wang Louis is going to expand to have the services. And of course, Roy Lester Snyder Hospital expanded immediately. I got to congratulate you on that. I thought it would be December of last year, and you actually opened, I think it was around September. So you were actually ahead of schedule, because we were afraid, right, that this day would come when the CKC would close again. And, you know, I got to hark on this, right? Had Roy Lester Snyder Hospital not be able to take care of those patients, Dr. Gardner, with 2 hours notice, you would have put this whole government in deadlock. You would have had us hanging with 2 hours notice for all of these patients, nowhere to go, no place on the island. So thank goodness that Tina Commission and her staff was able to get it done so we can treat these patients. And also on St. Croix, we got testimony right here from Ms. Amina Salim for the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation, where they are able to take your 39 patients and treat them, and they can in fact handle 46. We should not be in a situation where none of us, you didn't even call me, Dr. Gardner, you call me all the time for everything else. You didn't call me and say, Fonseca, I'm going to close this afternoon. Okay, I had to find out about it. The news media called me. You didn't even call one senator, not the president, nobody, no notice. You know, I'm not going to say that this was willful or negligent, but it was not professional. You know, I take this personally. This Committee on Health, Hospital, and Human Services has worked hard, extremely hard, to deal with kidney dialysis and all the renal issues in this community. And for you to blindside this committee by not even informing no one, not even the vice chair on St. Croix, Senator Frederick, who you know well, not even none of the other senators who served as, you know, assisting you. You know, this is not good at all, you know. So I do hope that you reopen, like you say, you are going to open. But I know not one dime I going to vote to give you on St. Thomas. Not one dime. As a matter of fact, not 1 cent. Because the way how this was done, I have lost confidence to be able to put my vote on the line to commit government funds. Senator Avery Lewis, you're recognized for your 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, colleagues. Been a long day. Good evening to the testifiers.
Good evening.
Good evening to the viewing and listening audience. Ms. Commission,
Yes, Senator Lewis.
Yes. Sorry about that. So much thing going on. Let's talk some business here.
Okay.
Currently, what would the cost for I think a temporary staff, give me the numbers again, what you think would be sufficient to augment what you have.
Sure. So I think to continue care through the end of the calendar year.
Yeah.
Let's look at that. Yeah, it's about 500,000 in staffing alone. So that would be the 3 nurses and the 6 techs. Their temporary contract labor expense would be about 500,000. Yeah. And then to replenish the supplies that we need, I would estimate about 350,000. Make sure we're good for hurricane stock for the full 106 plus or minus a couple of transient patients. And then we'll need to add some drug purchases. So 550, 350, and I would say 200 for drug purchases.
One thing, Commission, but you don't get close to the million, Mr. You just got laughing.
Right there.
You don't get close to that million. But, so currently, what type of overtime you're racking up?
I don't have the run rate on me right now, but it's considerable. It is considerable.
Let's get in there. And I heard you said that the staff is currently running their normal 12-hour shift, but now we may have to extend a few.
Yeah, we are extending. They're staying late and they're working extra shifts. And so we really, really appreciate them leaning in because we need their help to take care of the patients.
Publicly, I and all want to say thank you. I went up there today, had a little tour with you. I'd like to say thank you to all the staff in there. For whatever little bit they contribute or whatever lot they contribute, I'd like to say thank you publicly to them. And I'd also like to say that, hopefully, the people in the community would appreciate not just the dialysis unit, but every part of the Roy Lester Snyder Hospital, because I think everybody in there does their part to make this community run.
Thank you for saying that.
So I'll segue into saying this, that I believe in having options. So you don't want to go to the hospital, you can go to the urgent care. You don't want to go to our dialysis center, you go across the street. I believe in having options, but I believe in doing things professionally as well. Mm-hmm. Now, I sit down here good, and I listen closely, and, I have to agree with Ms. Solavachi, the semantics award, but temporary and suspension and closure, you're closed.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said.
You pack up the people, you send them across the street. And now I'm sitting down here and saying, it's sounding like you're saying that when you get up and running again, you're coming across the street for the same patients to bring them back across. No, sir. Ms. Commissioner, you do what you have to do to make them comfortable. Treat them right. I know you're going to treat them right.
Yes, we will.
Let's bill accordingly, and let the body help you in the best way we could. No more. Gone are the days when people taking advantage of this government. If RLSH had did that to their patients, miss one patient, it would have been pandemonium. There's a text floating around. People coming to the hospital tomorrow to protest. I know secret, they're wrong and wrong. It's on Facebook, it's all over, WhatsApp, everything. But nobody talking about what CKC did Roy Lester Snyder. It's all fair when it's okay, let's cause the government all day when the government do wrong. But when people do the government thing, we need to speak up in this place. So, I am for that. So I agree with my colleagues. This is a private entity. All the people who come across the street is paying people in.
Yeah.
Not one want to go to him.
Can't pay. They have to pay.
Can't pay, no. These are paying people. So let me make that crystal clear. I am not saying he didn't provide a good service when he did. I am far from that. I am saying, don't tell people, listen, 330, whatever it was, 357, 350, whatever it is, I closing these doors, you gotta go across the street. And then hand them whatever file you have, whatever, no notification. I had family members come here and cruise and so forth and plan it out way ahead for them to be dialyzed when they came here. So we have to do things in an orderly manner. Not because it's a government, a lot of them out there talk about the hospital. I see the same very doctors, when you go there, you come for your colonoscopy, could do it in my office. No, I want to do it at the hospital. No, do it in my office. No, the hospital. Start going to the hospital. They have a good facility there. They're improving. And again, I am a firm believer in having options. But things have to be done right. And publicly, I thank you and the entire staff at Snyder Regional Medical Center for all you do. And we're going to try to work on this 500, 350,
Is a million.
and 200, 1 million.
About 1.1.
You know, let me ask this quick question. Mr. Lavachi, this service is running on weekend?
On Saturdays, yes. The only day that we're closed is on Sundays. We even open on holidays.
We have to open on holidays
Yes.
now, right?
Yes.
And the census is 106 in the dialysis
Now,
unit.
yes. With
All
the
right.
CKC
Time.
patients, yes, 106.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Senator Lewis. Chairman, if you don't mind, may I address one thing that Senator
Yes,
Lewis
yes.
brought up? Because I think it's really important to clarify for the public. And we put out a press release because we saw also what was circulating on WhatsApp, and it's very unfortunate. We were made aware of the false and what we consider to be irresponsible message that's circulating on WhatsApp and social media. And it has inaccurate claims about the hospital's operation and standards of care. Speaks about babies dying because they didn't have the right equipment at SRMC, and that is false. It is not accurate, and I want to clarify that for the public. We do a lot to build the public's trust in the care that we give. We want the community to feel comfortable coming to us for care. We are working to improve things. We got a great team, really talented clinicians. And so these types of false narratives that are out there really take away from all of the wonderful things that are happening at the hospital. Specifically, I want to be clear, there was no instances of babies dying due to lack of equipment at SRMC, as was claimed in that message. There's no suspension of necessary medical procedures at SRMC, as was claimed in that message. And as we've talked about today in the hearing, there is sufficient clinical space at SRMC to care for all of the hemodialysis patients in the district, even with the closure of CKC. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to put that clarity on the record for the public. And thank you, Senator Lewis and Senator Frederick, for coming to visit, and the other senators that have come to visit, because I think I've seen almost every senator come to the unit, see the unit, which we really, really, really appreciate. It means a lot to our staff, and it shows that you really care and you're really in tune. So thank you for coming to visit.
Yes, thank you. Senator Carla Joseph, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I really want to commend you again, because I know where dialysis used to be. Okay, I know where dialysis used to be until they had a core group of patients and their families to move it to where it is now, that they are able to offer really high quality service. I could attest to it with my mother. I wanted to ask, because I wasn't getting it, I didn't ask this question before. What is the patient-staff ratio that is dictated by CMS?
I'll defer to Dr. Olivaci. I think there is a standard, like an industry standard,
There's
more than a
a-
requirement, but
Yeah,
Dr.
the
O can speak
standard.
to it.
So the actual dialysis treatments are done by the technician.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to have 3 or 4 dialysis technicians on each shift. And so a shift is 15 patients. And that way we make sure that we can visualize all the patients all the time. And then we always have 2 registered nurses on for those patients. Depending on what's going on with the patients, we may have 3.
So basically 3 technicians to maybe 5 patients?
To
I mean,
15,
one
like 1 to 5.
One technician to
1 to 5.
1 to 5. One
Yes.
technician to 5 patients.
Yes.
Okay.
But we never would have one technician on by themselves.
Right.
Even if we would always have enough for emergency if something happened.
Okay. So that's why you have 4.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then you have 2 nurses. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
But when we absorbed the CKCI patients, we had to increase the number of staff that we had.
Okay.
Thank you. So I wanted to just ask one question. The water for the dialysis. Kidney dialysis involves a lot of water. So tell me what you do, what type of water are you using in the kidney dialysis?
Yes, Senator Fonseca, great question. So water, as you stated, is a very, very important part of the treatment process. We have built out now with the new unit a totally new state-of-the-art water treatment plant. It's actually much more energy efficient than the old plant, and it wastes a lot less of the water. So there are multiple stations that the water passes through, and it goes through different levels of filtration. Things are removed, things are added, et cetera. But it's really a great looking water treatment plant, and the testing of the water quality coming off of it is excellent. It has its own disinfection loop. So in the evenings when we're off, it disinfects itself, and it's connected to all the machines. It's really advanced. Thanks for the question.
I just want to put on the record that you're using a new water filtration system for the kidney dialysis. Thank you. Senator Avery Lewis, you're recognized for your point of information.
Point of information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good afternoon to everyone. Good evening. Mr. Commission, I know you in dialysis, you just can't pull people from anywhere. It has to be specific positions.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I really wanted to use.
Credentials, qualifications, training.
Qualifications,
Yes.
the text and so forth, right?
Yes.
But the one part I want to tell you, let's see who we could pull to make sure that we bill in accurately and timely.
Very important part of it is the billing and collecting.
Like I said earlier, I know these will come across the street paying. So let's make sure that things in place with that. You're going to cost some overtime, or let's see how we could staff up. But along with our temporary employees where we may have to bring from away, let's see how we could put some advertisements out here to see how we could, bring people from home and staff, hire locally, train them up, and bring them in the fold.
Yes, Senator Lewis. I love that suggestion, and we definitely always want to employ Virgin Islanders.
I keep them for 6 months, and then I got them for 6 years. So
no, we want permanent staff. Yes.
We phase them out. So we train one, okay, you go back home. We train, you go back home.
Yes, I totally agree. And we actually have a really good history of training our own dialysis techs. We have brought up a number of employees who didn't even work in that area, were not clinical initially, into that training program, and they're doing well. Some of our best techs we grew ourselves, and we plan to continue doing that. We actually have 2 students in training right now that are working right alongside the team.
Good.
So exactly what you're suggesting, we're investing
and call
in.
up on the skills center across the street too. Let's see what they have in store for us to see how we could bring them in the fold as well. I want Ms. Olivachi tell me, well, I bring chicks from the States and Texas in New York, New Jersey. No, they hold me them, please.
So may I, Senator, please?
Yes, you could answer the chair time. Thank you very much.
So actually today we met with the administrative staff, and they're looking at the charges and getting the insurance information for the patients that was transitioned over. So we do understand the charging and the billing. And I met with the administrative staff with that today. We actually have 12 of our dialysis technicians now who are homegrown, trained, and passed their exam as CEO. And I have to say, we have an awesome CEO. I just have to say it. We have an awesome CEO who's very supportive of the team, and I mean, just the whole hospital. And it comes from the top. So we actually have a list of our employees who want to be trained as hemodialysis technician. We already have the list. So as soon as things settle down and we get the patients settled in, we'll have another class.
So I thank you for those
Yes.
responses, but I
Yes.
also go come up and make sure that the 12 is homegrown. Like
They're
okay?
homegrown. They're homegrown.
Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes, Senator Hubert Frederick, Vice Chair, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. One is to Dr. Gardner. Will CMS allow you to reopen?
I don't see any reason why not. That issue has not been raised, and I don't see that as a problem.
Okay. Secondly, I wanted everyone to just keep in mind, these patients have a right to go wherever they want to go for the care that they're receiving. For the last 22 years, the Caribbean Kidney Center have provided dialysis services for a lot of patients, and some of them are happy with that service. So we don't know ultimately, if this temporary closure is lifted, we don't know how many will stay with Snyder Regional Medical Center, but either way, I am just happy for the patients so that they have whatever choice, wherever they want to go, that it's available to them. And I like multiple systems because I will always say, do not ever depend on any one system. No matter how perfect it may seem, anything could happen at any time. And I don't want people to have this thing, well, this person is wrong or right, or, there's errors here, understand, but keep in mind, ultimately, we want to have capacity. That's just in case things happen. And keep that in mind as one of the most important things we think about when we consider whether or not we're going to assist people to open up to provide more capacity or not. That's my only point. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Frederick. Senator Collins, Joseph, you're recognized for your burning question.
My burning question is this, because I said my mother was on dialysis for 15 years. And when we went to the States, we used a privately operated dialysis service, DaVita. It's one of the biggest and well-known dialysis provider in the United States. So Dr. Olavachi and CEO Commission, do you know of any privately operated entity that receive subsidy outside of Medicare or Medicaid from the local government in your?
Not to my knowledge, for-profit private entities like a DaVita or what used to be Fresenius.
Right.
I don't know them to receive government subsidies. Probably other not-for-profit government-type providers of the service, maybe that are taking care of indigent populations or payer mixes where they don't have good insurance, they may get some subsidization. But I'm not personally familiar with any.
Dr. Olavachi?
Senator, not to my knowledge either.
None. Dr. Garner, your CKC is a for-profit, right?
Yes, it is, Senator.
And you're familiar with DaVita and the other for-profit organizations who provide dialysis services nationally?
Yes, Senator.
Do you know of any of them ever receiving any subsidy to pay for patient care?
Senator, let me answer that question this way. Up until recently, there was a disparity between reimbursements for small facilities and large facilities. DaVita and Fresenius are not comparable to CKC. They are huge, they are corporate entities, and they've got many ways of multiplying their stuff. They manufacture their own supplies, manufacture their own machines, manufacture their own medications, etc., etc. So a comparison to those two facilities is not appropriate. Now, there was a time when CMS, even CMS, paid small facilities, and they still do. It depends on the number of treatments you provide per year. Small facilities, supplemental funds to make them succeed. And there were facilities like facilities in Guam, Alaska, Hawaii, they were getting differential rates for reimbursement. So yes, small facilities in rural areas do get some subsidies from governmental agencies.
But from CMS, that's federal. But I'm talking about local. And you aren't in this business to not turn a profit. You are in a for-profit business, and you entered this business because you knew. You did your business plan, you did your research to know that you would be able to make a profit from are billing customers who giving services to customers who can in turn pay you through Medicare or Medicaid or their insurance. So I know differently. And that you are supposed to be able to be self-sustaining. I don't have any further question, Mr. Chairman, and I want to again commend the team at Roy Lester Schneider Hospital. I know Nurse Donna, she took really great care of my mother and the other technicians. You had 2 technicians. I just want to note, if I can, for point of personal privilege, you had 2 technicians who were pinned as nurses this year and graduated from the University of the Virgin Islands. I remember their faces very well, but not their names. But they came up through the ranks and were able to become today registered nurses, to become nurses and have completed the nursing program at the University of the Virgin Islands, and I was there for their pinning ceremony. So we see the transition and the investment of Roy Lester Schneider Hospital in their staff, and specifically the dialysis staff. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Senator Joseph. And so I think we've exhausted our line of questioning. So what I'll do is I'll allow the testifiers to give their closing remarks. 1 minute. Dr. Gardner, we'll start with you. You may proceed with your closing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will continue to do my best to get CKC operational again from a staffing point of view as soon as possible. I will also thank the committee for this hearing. I regret that the impression left is one of that more notice wasn't given, et cetera, but I continue to maintain that as a responsible physician, my judgment to cease temporarily suspend services was correct, and I would do it again. What I would not do is I would probably take a little more time to communicate and transfer the situation. But I deemed it an emergency. My patients, as testified by the CEO of Rochland Hospital, was a no. They were not in extremis. They were not, death was not inevitable on any of them, and that the transfer process that was used under the circumstances, while not ideal, was warranted, and any inconvenience that resulted from it, I apologize for publicly. But I still maintain I did what needed to be done on behalf of the patients. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner, and we're so glad you were able to come by to give testimony to the committee on the situation, and we look forward to having you reopen your doors as soon as possible. Tina Commission will at this time entertain your closing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, Senator Fonseca, and to the entire committee. Thank you all senators for having this hearing on this very critical issue and really putting your attention to it. Definitely appreciate all the support that Schneider Regional gets over the years. Definitely appreciate our hardworking staff. I really want to thank our physicians, specifically the nephrologists, Dr. Sobel, Dr. LaCreme, and Dr. Roloff, for taking great care of these patients, along with our director for our hemodialysis unit, Ms. Vernesta Hodge, who was our Employee of the Year. And a truly fitting honor. She's a wonderful employee. and she's helping us manage through this crisis, as well as Miss Casey, who's one of our lead head nurses, but really all of the staff of the hemodialysis department. And there are a lot of other team members that are part of what happens there, the magic that happens that we don't always see. So there are people in procurement, like Mr. Brown, who's gonna order all of the supplies that we need, all the dialyzers and the fluids. We have a biomedical team that takes care of the equipment, services the machines, make sure the water treatment plant is maintained, et cetera. We have case management staff. We have environmental services, housekeeping staff that clean the area, make sure that everything is disinfected. So it really takes an entire team, and I'm blessed to lead them. And it's been great sharing the wonderful work that happens at Schneider Regional. And I'm glad that we had the foresight and the will and the commitment to building out that extra unit and developing that capacity so that we could serve the community when it was needed. So thanks again.
Yes, thank you, thank you. As we conclude today's hearing of the Committee on Health, Hospitals, and Human Services, I extend my sincere gratitude to my colleagues, the invited testifiers, central staff, and my team for their thoughtful contributions and diligent efforts throughout today's proceedings. I also thank the listening and viewing public for staying engaged in the issues that impact the health and well-being of our community. Today's meeting featured productive and insightful discussions. Bill number 36-003 was forwarded to the Committee on Rules and Judiciary for further review and action. This bill dealt with nursing homes and assisted living facilities by establishing a new Chapter 76 to establish services for those in those facilities. We also addressed pressing environmental and public health challenges caused by wastewater discharges in our territory. We closely examined the status of the dialysis services, receiving important testimony from Snyder Regional Medical Center, which has stepped up in a critical moment to ensure continuity of care for over 100 dialysis patients. 106, that's right, to be exact, that have been, some of them had been displaced by the sudden temporarily closure of the Caribbean Kidney Center. I'd like to thank all who contributed their expertise and perspectives today. Your input informs the policies that safeguards the people of this territory. As we move forward, let us remain committed to health equity, environmental responsibility, and the strength of our healthcare infrastructure. As always, we give thanks and praises to the Most High for life and guidance, and may we continue to work together with purpose, compassion, and unity. With that, the meeting of the Committee of Health, Hospitals, and Human Services is now adjourned, and may God bless you all, and God bless the Virgin Islands.